I stood frozen at my sister Rachel's wedding reception as my father clinked his champagne glass and announced he was transferring ownership of the house I'd been paying off for 7 years to Rachel's new husband, Derek. The house where I spent countless nights painting walls and fixing broken pipes while my parents lived there rent-free. My mother beamed proudly beside Derek, calling him the son we never had. My hands shook as I realized my parents just gave away my entire future to a man they'd known for 18 months. Let me take you back to when I was 25 years old. Fresh out of college with my finance degree, I was working as a junior analyst at a consulting firm in Denver. That's when my parents called me in tears. The bank was foreclosing on their house. They'd refinanced twice, taken out home equity loans, and somehow managed to fall 3 months behind on payments. My father had been laid off from his manufacturing job, and my mother's part-time work at the library wasn't enough to cover their bills. I'll never forget sitting in that bank office signing my name on a mortgage that would consume the next 7 years of my life. The house was in terrible shape. The roof leaked, the furnace barely worked, and the kitchen hadn't been updated since the 1970s, but it was my childhood home and I couldn't let my parents end up on the street. The deal was supposed to be simple. I'd buy the house, they'd live there rent-free while they got back on their feet, and eventually I'd move in when they were ready to downsize. I moved into a 400-square-foot studio apartment on the wrong side of town where the walls were so thin I could hear my neighbor's alarm clock every morning at 4:30. For 7 years, I worked 2 jobs. My main job at the consulting firm paid the mortgage and basic bills. Every Tuesday, Thursday, and weekend, I did freelance bookkeeping for small businesses. I remember falling asleep at my laptop more nights than I could count, surviving on instant coffee and store-brand cereal. While my friends were traveling to Europe and going to music festivals, I was watching YouTube videos to learn how to fix a leaking toilet or patch drywall. My sister Rachel was in her 3rd year of college, then switching majors for the second time. She lived in the sorority house, went to parties every weekend, and called home when she needed money. My parents always found a way to send her something, usually asking me to help out just this once, because family helps family. I spent every vacation day working on that house. I taught myself to tile the bathroom floor, installed new kitchen cabinets from scratch, and even figured out basic electrical work to replace outdated outlets. My coworkers would ask about my bandaged fingers or the paint in my hair, and I'd make up stories about weekend art projects because I was too embarrassed to admit I was spending my 20s as an unpaid contractor. The transformation was incredible, though. What started as a rundown 2-story colonial became a beautiful home. I refinished the original hardwood floors on my hands and knees, painted every single room, and even landscaped the front yard with drought-resistant plants that would be easy for my parents to maintain. I kept a folder of every receipt, every before and after photo documenting the $43,000 I'd invested beyond the mortgage payments. My plan was to make the final payment next summer. I'd already started packing boxes in my cramped apartment, dreaming about having a real kitchen where I could cook actual meals instead of microwaving frozen dinners. I'd picked out paint colors for what would finally be my bedroom, not the guest room I'd slept in during high school. 3 months ago, my mother had even said something that gave me hope. We were sitting on the front porch I'd rebuilt, and she mentioned how nice it would be when I moved in. "This house needs young energy," she'd said, patting my hand. "Your father and I are getting too old for all these stairs." I thought we were finally on the same page. I thought my sacrifice had meant something. I thought wrong. Because 2 months ago, while I was reviewing mortgage statements and calculating how much I could save once I no longer had to pay rent and mortgage simultaneously, my parents were at a lawyer's office. They were signing papers to add Derek Matthew Sullivan to the deed of my house. They were taking the pen I'd used to sign away 7 years of my life and handing it to a man who'd been dating my sister for barely a year. They did it on a Wednesday afternoon, probably right around the time I was in a meeting presenting cost-saving strategies to a client. I was showing a Fortune 500 company how to protect their assets while my own parents were giving mine away. 18 months ago, everything changed. It was Thanksgiving, and I was in the kitchen checking on the turkey I'd bought and prepped the night before. My parents were watching football in the living room when Rachel burst through the door with her new boyfriend. "Everyone, this is Derek," she announced, pulling him inside like he was a prize she'd won at the state fair. Derek Matthew Sullivan was 6 feet 2 inches of calculated charm. His dental veneers caught the light when he smiled, and his handshake was just firm enough to seem confident without being aggressive. He wore a perfectly pressed polo shirt with the collar popped just so, khaki pants without a single wrinkle, and boat shoes that had never seen an actual boat. "Mrs. Thompson, that turkey smells incredible," he said to my mother within 30 seconds of meeting her. "You must share your secret with me. I love to cook." My mother literally giggled. My 64-year-old mother giggled like a teenager. "Oh, Derek, aren't you sweet? Come sit down, you must be hungry after the drive." "Actually, I brought wine." Derek produced 2 bottles from a bag I hadn't noticed. "A Pinot Noir for dinner and a Riesling for dessert. I hope that's all right." My father stood up from his recliner, something he rarely did for guests. "A man who knows his wine, Rachel. You've got yourself a keeper here." I watched this performance from the kitchen doorway, dish towel still in my hand. In 5 minutes, Derek had gotten more enthusiasm from my parents than I'd received in 5 years of house payments. "And you must be Anne Marie." Derek turned to me with that megawatt smile. "Rachel's told me so much about you, a financial analyst, right? That's impressive. I'm in pharmaceutical sales myself. We should compare notes on market trends sometime." The way he said it, you'd think pharmaceutical sales and financial analysis were basically the same thing. Like we were colleagues who'd bump into each other at industry conferences. I forced a smile and shook his manicured hand, noticing the Rolex that seemed a bit too flashy for someone his age. Dinner was the Derek show. He complimented every single dish, asked my father about his glory days at the manufacturing plant, and praised my mother's volunteer work at the library like she was running a literacy nonprofit. He even had a story about visiting his own grandmother in a nursing home every Sunday, complete with misty eyes when he mentioned she'd passed last year. "Oh, family is everything to me," he said, reaching over to squeeze Rachel's hand. "That's why I'm so glad to be here with all of you." Rachel beamed at him like he'd just cured cancer. My parents exchanged looks that clearly said, our daughter finally found a real man. Within a month, Derek was at every family dinner. He brought flowers for my mother, helped my father fix the garage door opener I'd been planning to repair, and always had some exciting story about a big deal he'd closed or a conference he'd attended in Vegas or Miami. "Derek's going to be regional sales director by 30 ART, my father told me one Sunday. That's a 6-figure position with stock options. Real ambitious, that one." I wanted to point out that I was already making close to 6 figures, but I knew it wouldn't matter. I didn't have a Y chromosome or a firm handshake that impressed my father. By February, my mother was cooking Derek's favorite pot roast every Sunday. She actually called him to ask what sides he preferred. When I mentioned I'd be late to dinner because of a work deadline, she barely acknowledged it. But when Derek had a client emergency, she held dinner for an hour and kept everything warm. "He works so hard," she said, fussing over the table settings. "Such dedication to his career." The career dedication became more questionable when Derek started pitching investment opportunities. First, it was a revolutionary supplement company that was about to explode. He just needed $50,000 to buy in at the ground level. "It's a pyramid scheme," I told my parents privately. "The FTC has 3 open investigations into the parent company." "You're just jealous," my mother snapped. "Derek is trying to build something and you can't stand it." Then came the restaurant idea. Derek had a friend who was opening a fusion tapas bar and they needed investors. Just $30,000 for a 10% stake. Have you seen their business plan? I asked. What about permits market analysis? Do they even have a chef lined up? My father waved me off. Derek knows what he's doing. He has connections in the industry. I watched in horror as my parents wrote checks from their savings money. I'd helped them rebuild after the foreclosure scare. Derek always had elaborate explanations for why the investments weren't panning out, yet usually involving market conditions or unexpected delays that sounded plausible if you didn't know better. The warning signs were everywhere. Derek's car was leased, not owned. His expensive clothes all had subtle signs of wear that suggested they were bought secondhand. He always had cash, but never seemed to use credit cards. When I asked Rachel about his family, she was oddly vague. They're estranged, she said. Derek doesn't like to talk about it. Something about his father's business failing. But my parents saw none of this, or chose not to see it. Every accomplishment of mine was met with a comparison to Derek. When I got promoted to senior analyst, my mother said, "That's nice, dear. Did you hear Derek's meeting with pharmaceutical executives in Chicago?" When I paid off my car loan early, my father said, "Smart thinking. Derek says the best wealth is built through real estate, though. Maybe you should talk to him about investment properties." The man who'd never made a mortgage payment in his life was giving me real estate advice in my own childhood home, while I was killing myself to pay for it. I started finding excuses to miss family dinners, work deadlines, friend obligations, anything to avoid watching the Derek worship service. But even my absence was somehow about him. "Derek was disappointed you weren't here," my mother would text. "He had some career advice for you." Then came the engagement announcement. Derek proposed to Rachel at a winery in Napa Valley, complete with a photographer and a 2-carat diamond that I'd bet my savings account was moissanite. My parents were ecstatic. "Our baby girl is getting married," my mother cried, hugging Derek like he was her actual son. "Welcome to the family." "We need to celebrate properly," my father said. "Derek, what do you think about having the wedding at the country club?" The country club they couldn't afford when I graduated summa cum laude, the country club that was suddenly within budget for their new son-in-law. "Actually," Derek said with that practiced smile, "Rachel and I were thinking about a destination wedding, maybe Cabo." And just like that, my parents were planning to spend their savings on a beach wedding for the golden couple. I sat in my studio apartment that night, looking at the mortgage statements and improvement receipts, wondering how I'd become invisible in my own family's story. But the real shock came 2 weeks before the wedding when Rachel let something slip during a phone call. "Derek's been so stressed about work," she said. "I told him not to worry, that everything would work out after the wedding." "What do you mean after the wedding?" I asked. "Oh, nothing," she said quickly. "Just wedding stress. Hey, did Mom call you about the rehearsal dinner?" That conversation haunted me. What would work out after the wedding? What wasn't Derek telling Rachel? And why did I have the sinking feeling that somehow it involved me? The answer came at the wedding reception in front of 200 guests when my father clinked his champagne glass and destroyed my life with a single announcement. But even then, I didn't know the worst part. The worst part was that Derek had been unemployed for 6 months. The conferences, the client dinners, the important meetings, all fabrications. While I was working 16-hour days to pay for a house I'd never live in, Derek was spending his time crafting the perfect con. And my family had fallen for every single word. The wedding was a $300,000 facade at the Ocean View Resort in Santa Barbara. I'd driven up alone my sensible Honda Civic, looking out of place among the luxury vehicles in the valet line. Rachel had wanted me to be a bridesmaid, but I declined claiming work commitments. The truth was, I couldn't stomach standing up there in a $200 dress I'd never wear again, smiling while my family celebrated a man I didn't trust. I wore a simple navy dress I'd bought 3 years ago for a work conference. My mother had tisked when she saw me that morning. "Anne Marie, couldn't you have gotten something new? This is your sister's special day." The ceremony was on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. 200 guests sat in white chairs decorated with baby's breath and roses that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. I sat in the third row behind Derek's fraternity brothers, who kept high-fiving each other and making jokes about his score. Rachel looked beautiful, I had to admit. Her dress cost $15,000, a number I knew because my mother had called to ask if I could help out just a little with the final payment. I'd sent $2,000 I'd been saving for new windows in the house. My house. Or so I thought. The reception was in a ballroom with crystal chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows. I found my assigned seat at table 9, the singles table wedged between my father's podiatrist and Rachel's college roommate, who spent the entire cocktail hour showing me photos of her cats. I nursed a glass of wine, watching Derek work the room like a politician. He had a story for everyone, a connection to mention, a shared interest to explore. Several times, I overheard him mentioning his big plans and exciting ventures coming soon. His groomsmen, all cookie-cutter finance bros with the same haircut, kept slapping him on the back and calling him lucky dog. The dinner was surf and turf, which seemed excessive even for a wedding. I pushed lobster around my plate, calculating how many mortgage payments this reception could have covered. That's when my father stood up, tapping his champagne glass with a knife. "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" His voice boomed through the microphone. "I want to say a few words about my beautiful daughter and my new son." People settled into their seats, lifting their glasses in anticipation of the typical father of the bride toast. I should have known something was off by the way my mother was dabbing her eyes before he'd even started speaking. 28 years ago, Rachel came into our lives and made us complete, my father began. She's been our princess, our joy, our little girl who grew into an amazing woman. I noticed he skipped mentioning that they had another daughter, 32 years ago to be exact, but I was used to being edited out of family narratives. And then Derek came along. My father continued, his voice thick with emotion. From the moment I met this young man, I knew he was special, the son I never had. That phrase again, like a knife twisting in my chest. Derek stood up, placing his hand over his heart in fake humility. "In our family, we believe in taking care of each other," my father said. "That's why your mother and I have decided to give Derek and Rachel the perfect wedding gift to start their new life together." I set down my wine glass, a strange feeling creeping up my spine. My mother was full-on crying now, clutching tissues in both hands. "We're giving them the family home on Maple Street, transferred fully into their names so they can build their future in a house filled with love." The room erupted in applause. People were standing cheering, raising their glasses to toast the generous parents and the lucky couple. The blood drained from my face as I processed what had just happened. My house. 7 years of payments. 7 years of renovations. 7 years of my life signed away in a single moment to thunderous applause. Rachel was crying, hugging our parents. Derek was shaking hands with guests who congratulated him on his good fortune. I sat frozen in my chair as the room spun around me. "Excuse me," I managed to whisper to the cat lady before stumbling toward the bathroom, but my mother intercepted me in the hallway. "Anne-Marie, where are you going? They're about to cut the cake." "You gave them my house." The words came out strangled. "The house I've been paying for. The house I renovated." My mother's face hardened. "It's not your house. Your father and I are on the deed." "Because the bank required it. You know I paid every single payment. You promised I could move in next year." "Plans change," she said, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "Derek needs a proper home to provide for Rachel. You're single. You don't need all that space." "I don't need the space I've been paying for." My voice was rising. "Mom, I've been living in a studio apartment the size of Rachel's walk-in closet for 7 years so you could live rent-free." Lower your voice," she hissed. "You're making a scene at your sister's wedding. This is exactly why we didn't tell you ahead of time. We knew you'd be selfish about it." Selfish?" The word hit me like a slap. I'm selfish for wanting the house I bought. It's still in the family, she said, as if that made it better. Derek is family now. Besides, he's got such big plans. He's starting his own consulting firm. They need the equity more than you do. I stared at her, this woman who'd given birth to me, who'd supposedly raised me, and saw a stranger. Derek is unemployed, Mom. He's been lying to all of you for 6 months. Her face flushed red. How dare you spread lies about him on his wedding day? You've always been jealous of Rachel, but this is a new low. I have proof, I said. His company filed for bankruptcy. He was let go for expense fraud. I can show you the documents. I don't want to see your fabricated documents, she spat. Derek explained everything to us. The company made false accusations because he was too successful. They were intimidated by him. Of course, he'd gotten ahead of the story. Of course, they'd believed him over any evidence I might provide. When did you transfer the deed? I asked, my voice hollow. 2 months ago, she said, lifting her chin. Derek needed to establish residence for business purposes. 2 months. While I was scheduling the final repairs, planning my move, they were stealing my future. The mortgage is still in my name, I said. You transferred a house with an outstanding loan. That's fraud. My mother's eyes narrowed. Are you threatening us? Your own parents after everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me? The question erupted from somewhere deep inside. I've been taking care of you since I was 25. I've sacrificed everything while you threw money at Rachel and now Derek. What have you ever done for me? We raised you, she said coldly, fed you, clothed you, kept a roof over your head. Or did you forget that? The roof I paid for, I said, the food I bought, the clothes I could barely afford because every penny went to your mortgage. Nobody asked you to buy the house, she said, rewriting history in real time. You insisted. We were perfectly happy to downsize. The gaslighting was so blatant I actually laughed. You were 3 months from foreclosure. You called me crying. We would have figured it out. She waved her hand dismissively. You always have to be the martyr, don't you? Poor Anne-Marie, working so hard, sacrificing so much. Well, guess what? Nobody asked for your sacrifices. Nobody asked you to play the hero. I stared at her, this woman who had somehow managed to twist my 7 years of support into an act of selfishness. Behind her, through the ballroom doors, I could see Derek spinning Rachel on the dance floor, while guests threw money at them in some tasteless display of wealth. You're right, I said quietly. Nobody asked me to save you. I did it because I loved you, because I thought family meant something. But you've shown me exactly what family means to you. It means using one daughter to prop up the other. It means taking everything I've given and handing it to a con man because he has the right chromosomes. How dare you? My mother started, but I was already walking away. Where are you going? She called after me. The reception isn't over. It is for me, I said without turning around. I made it to the parking lot before the tears came. 7 years of my life gone, handed over to a man who'd been lying about having a job while I worked myself into exhaustion to keep the house afloat. My phone buzzed with texts from Rachel. Mom says you're leaving. What's wrong with you? This is my day and you're ruining it with your drama. Derek says you're probably jealous. Maybe you should talk to someone about your issues. I blocked her number, then my mother's, then my father's. Let them enjoy their perfect son-in-law in their perfect house that I'd perfected with my own hands. But as I sat in my car engine running, I remembered something else. Something that made me grip the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. During the mortgage application 7 years ago, I'd had to list all my assets, including the cabin. The cabin in Big Bear that I'd bought with my bonuses 2 years ago. My secret escape, the one place that was truly mine. The place no one in my family knew about. Or so I'd thought. Because if Derek had been planning this for 2 months, if he'd researched me enough to know about the house situation, then what else had he found? My phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Miss Thompson. A man's voice formal but concerned. "This is James from Patriot Mortgage. I'm calling about your account. We show here that you're the primary borrower on the Maple Street property, but we've received some concerning paperwork about a deed transfer." My blood went cold. "When did you receive this paperwork?" "It came in Friday afternoon, ma'am. The thing is, our legal department has some concerns. You can't typically transfer a deed on a property with an outstanding mortgage without the lender's permission. And these signatures? Well, we'd like you to come verify them in person." Friday, yesterday, while I was driving to Santa Barbara for the wedding, someone had submitted fraudulent paperwork to my mortgage company. "I'll be there first thing Monday morning," I said. Actually, ma'am, given the circumstances, our fraud department head is willing to meet with you tomorrow. Sunday. This appears to be time sensitive." Fraud department. Time sensitive. The words echoed in my head as I ended the call. I looked back at the resort, at the lights of the reception where my family was celebrating their betrayal of me. Through the windows, I could see Derek raising a toast, probably to his good fortune. My parents beaming beside him. Rachel glowing with newlywed bliss. They thought they'd won. They thought they'd taken everything. But Derek had made a mistake. Several mistakes, actually, and I was done being the family doormat who quietly accepted whatever scraps they threw my way. I put the car in drive and headed north toward Big Bear, toward my cabin, toward the one thing they hadn't managed to steal. The drive to Big Bear took 3 hours, but I made it in 2.5, my mind racing faster than my Honda on the winding mountain roads. The mortgage company's call played on repeat in my head. Fraud department. Suspicious signatures. Time sensitive. My cabin sat nestled among pine trees at the end of a private road, a modest 1,200 square foot retreat that had become my sanctuary. I'd bought it 2 years ago after landing a particularly lucrative consulting project. The bonus had been substantial, and instead of telling my family about it, I'd quietly made a down payment on this place. It was nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a stone fireplace, and a deck overlooking the forest. But it was mine. Completely, entirely mine. My name alone on the deed, purchased with money I'd earned in a place my family had never visited. I pulled up the steep driveway gravel, crunching under my tires, and immediately noticed something wrong. The motion sensor light by the front door was on, but I'd been gone since Thursday. These lights had a 10-minute timer. My hands shook as I unlocked the door, half expecting to find Derek sitting in my living room, but the cabin was empty, everything exactly as I'd left it, except for a business card wedged in the sliding doorframe leading to the deck. Mitchell Keller, Real Estate Development. It read, "Interested in purchasing mountain properties for premium prices. Cash offers." I knew that name. He was one of Derek's fraternity brothers, from the wedding, the one who'd given the crude best man speech about Derek always closing the deal. I set my laptop on the kitchen counter and pulled up my security system app. I'd installed cameras after a series of break-ins in the area last year. The footage loaded slowly on the mountain internet, but when it finally appeared, my stomach dropped. 2 weeks ago, Thursday afternoon, Derek's silver Audi pulling up my driveway. He got out, walked around the property, took photos with his phone. He tried the front door, found it locked, then walked the entire perimeter of the cabin. The cameras caught him measuring the deck with his phone app, photographing the view, even peering through windows. But that wasn't the worst part. He wasn't alone. Mitchell Keller was with him, along with another man I didn't recognize carrying what looked like surveying equipment. I fast-forwarded through the footage. They were there for 2 hours. At one point, Derek made a call, gesturing animatedly at the cabin while talking. I couldn't hear the conversation, but his body language screamed salesman making a pitch. They'd left the business card, then probably hoping I'd call about selling. But why would Derek be showing my cabin to a developer before he even had the house? Unless... I opened my laptop and started searching. Derek Matthew Sullivan, real estate transactions, property fraud. The results made my hands go cold. 3 years ago in Arizona, a Derek Sullivan had been involved in a property dispute. An elderly couple claimed he'd manipulated them into signing over their deed through a complicated series of transactions. The case was settled out of court. 5 years ago in Nevada, a DM Sullivan was named in a lawsuit involving a woman who'd lost her inherited property through what she claimed was a fraudulent marriage and quick divorce. The details were sealed, but the woman's social media posts from that time painted a picture of devastating loss. I dug deeper, using the paid databases from work. Derek's employment history was a patchwork of short-term positions never lasting more than 18 months. His LinkedIn showed glowing recommendations, but when I cross-referenced the recommenders, half of them didn't exist at the companies they claimed to work for. My phone rang, interrupting my research. Sarah Martinez, my best friend from college and now a contract lawyer. Anne Marie, I just saw Rachel's wedding photos on Instagram. Are you okay? You look stressed in the group photos. Sarah, I need your help. The whole story poured out. The house, the announcement, the mortgage call, and now the cabin footage. Sarah listened in silence until I finished. Then she said 3 words that changed everything. Check your credit. My credit? Why? Just do it. Now, while I'm on the phone. I pulled up my credit monitoring app, entering my password with trembling fingers. What I saw made me gasp. 3 new credit inquiries in the last month. 2 credit cards opened in my name that I'd never applied for. A personal loan application for $50,000 that had been submitted but not yet approved. Identity theft, Sarah said grimly. Let me guess your family had access to your personal information? Of course they did. My birth certificate, social security card, old tax returns, everything was in a filing cabinet at the house. My house. The house Derek now owned. Sarah, what do I do? Well, first, you freeze your credit immediately, all 3 bureaus. Second, you file a police report for identity theft. Third, you document everything. Every transaction, every piece of evidence, every timeline, and Anne-Marie, you need a lawyer. A real estate lawyer and a criminal lawyer. Criminal lawyer. This isn't just family drama anymore. This is organized fraud. Derek isn't just some opportunistic boyfriend. He's running a sophisticated property theft scheme, and your parents are either complicit or the useful idiots he needed to pull it off. After Sarah hung up, I sat in my cabin, the weight of the situation crushing down on me. They hadn't just stolen my house. They were trying to steal my identity, my credit, my entire financial existence. I spent the next 4 hours documenting everything. 7 years of bank statements showing mortgage payments, receipts for $43,000 in home improvements, the security footage of Derek casing my cabin, screenshots of his fraud history in other states. By 3 a.m, I had a 100-page file that told the story of the longest con I'd ever seen. Derek had studied my family, identified me as the mark, and used my parents' favoritism and my sister's vanity to execute his plan. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd assumed I was as naive as my parents. He'd thought the quiet, dutiful daughter who'd sacrificed everything would continue to do so silently. My phone had been off since the credit discovery, but I powered it on to find 47 missed calls. 20 from my mother, 15 from my father, 10 from Rachel, and 2 from unknown numbers that were probably Derek. The voicemail started apologetic. Sweetie, we should have told you differently. Then angry. You embarrassed us in front of everyone. Then threatening. If you don't answer your phone, we're coming to find you. The last voicemail was from my father, left at 2:45 a.m. Anne-Marie, Derek told us about your cabin. We need to talk about family assets and fair distribution. Your mother and I are driving up in the morning. Family assets, fair distribution. They were coming for my cabin. I looked around at my small sanctuary, at the books I'd read by the fireplace, the hiking boots by the door, the coffee mug I'd left on the counter Thursday morning when my biggest worry was wedding small talk. They thought I'd run here to lick my wounds. They thought I'd cry and eventually cave like I always had, give them the cabin to keep the peace, continue being the family ATM while they praised Derek's business acumen. But something had broken in me at that wedding. Or maybe something had finally been fixed. The part of me that believed family meant accepting abuse, that love required endless sacrifice, that keeping the peace was worth more than keeping my dignity. I made one more call before the sun rose. Marcus Chen, the best real estate attorney in California and my firm's external counsel. I'd helped him with financial analysis for his divorce 2 years ago. He owed me a favor. Marcus, it's Anne-Marie Thompson. I'm sorry to call so early, but I have a situation. A big one. Anne-Marie, it's 4 a.m. Are you in danger? Financial danger, property fraud, identity theft, and the perpetrators are on their way to my location as we speak. There was a pause. Then Marcus's voice suddenly all business. Give me the address. Don't let them inside. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. I'll be there with my team in 3 hours. Your team? My partner specializes in elder abuse and family fraud. My investigator is former FBI, specializes in financial crimes, and Anne-Marie start recording everything. California is a 2-party consent state, but if they come onto your property and you inform them they're being recorded, anything they say is admissible. I hung up and looked at the sunrise, beginning to paint the mountains pink. In a few hours, my parents would arrive, expecting to find their broken daughter ready to hand over her last asset. Instead, they'd find something else entirely. They'd find Anne-Marie Thompson, documented owner of a cabin, victim of systematic fraud and no longer willing to light herself on fire to keep her family warm. The doorbell camera alerted me at 7:15. My parents' Lincoln Navigator in the driveway, Derek's Audi pulling in behind them. They'd brought reinforcements. I hit record on my phone, set it on the kitchen counter facing the door, and took a deep breath. The girl who'd signed away 7 years of her life to save her parents was gone. The woman who answered the door was someone new, someone who'd learned that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about respect, and I was done giving mine to people who'd never shown me any. The pounding on the door started at 7:17. My mother's voice, shrill with entitlement. Anne-Marie, we know you're in there. Open this door right now. I checked my phone. Marcus would be here in 2 hours and 28 minutes. I could hold them off that long. I had to. Because this time, I wasn't just fighting for a house or a cabin. I was fighting for my life. And Derek Sullivan was about to learn what happened when you tried to con the wrong woman. The pounding on my cabin door intensified. My father's voice joined my mother's, deeper and more threatening. Anne-Marie, we drove 3 hours to talk to you. Don't be childish. I stood on the other side of the door phone recording and spoke clearly. This conversation is being recorded. You are on private property without invitation. Please state your business. There was a moment of shocked silence before Derek's smooth voice cut through. Recording your family. That's a bit paranoid, don't you think? Derek Sullivan, I said, maintaining my calm. You are trespassing on my property. I have security footage of you illegally surveying my cabin 2 weeks ago. Please leave immediately. Anne-Marie, open this door. My mother's voice had reached a pitch that probably scared away the local wildlife. We are your parents. Parents who transferred my house to someone else without my knowledge, I replied. Parents who are now attempting to access my private property without permission. You have 2 minutes to leave before I call the police. Your property. My father laughed bitterly. Everything you have came from us. We raised you, supported you, and this is how you repay us. I repaid you with 7 years of mortgage payments, I said. I have the bank statements to prove it. Derek says those payments were rent. My mother chimed in. He says you were just a tenant. The audacity took my breath away. Even through a closed door, I could feel Derek's manipulation at work. He'd already started rewriting history, and my parents were eager accomplices. I have the original purchase agreement in my name, I stated. I have receipts for $43,000 in improvements. I have emails and text messages discussing my eventual move-in. Your son-in-law is lying to you. Don't you dare talk about Derek that way, Rachel's voice. I hadn't realized she was there too. He's done more for this family in 18 months than you have in 32 years. What exactly has he done, Rachel? I asked. Besides lose his job 6 months ago and lie about it. That's slander. Derek's voice not so smooth now. I'll sue you for defamation. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation, I replied. I have your termination letter from Pharma Global. Would you like me to read it? The part about expense account fraud is particularly interesting. The silence stretched for 10 seconds before the pounding resumed harder this time. Through my security app, I could see Derek trying the windows while my parents continued their assault on the front door. I'm calling the police now, I announced, dialing 911. Don't you dare, my mother screeched. How could you call the police on your own family? The dispatcher answered, and I calmly explained the situation. 4 individuals attempting forced entry, previous surveillance of the property, verbal threats being made. Yes, I felt unsafe. Yes, I wanted officers dispatched. They're sending units now, I told my family through the door. You have approximately 8 minutes to leave before being arrested for attempted breaking and entering. What followed was a stream of profanity from my mother that would have shocked her church friends. My father called me every name imaginable. Rachel sobbed dramatically about how I was ruining her life, but it was Derek's cold, calculated voice that sent chills down my spine. You think you're smart, don't you? But I know things about you, Anne-Marie. Things that would interest your employer. Things that would destroy your career. Are you threatening me, Derek? On a recorded line. After I've already documented your identity theft attempts. Another silence. Then the sound of car doors slamming. Through the window, I watched them pile into their vehicles, just as the first sheriff's cruiser rounded the corner. I met the officers outside, providing them with my ID and a brief explanation. They took my statement, examined the security footage of Derek's previous visit, and assured me they'd file a report. Do you want to pursue a restraining order? Officer Martinez asked. I'm meeting with my attorney in an hour, Ron, I said. We'll handle it through proper channels. After they left, I sat on my deck watching the sunrise fully bloom over the mountains. My phone buzzed with incoming texts, but I ignored them. I had preparations to make before Marcus arrived. By 9:45, Marcus Chen's Tesla pulled up, followed by a second vehicle. He emerged in a perfectly pressed suit despite the mountain roads, accompanied by a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense bearing. Anne-Marie, this is Patricia Winters, my partner. She specializes in family fraud cases. He gestured to a younger man carrying multiple equipment cases. And this is James Park, our investigator. We sat at my kitchen table as I laid out the entire story. Patricia took notes on a legal pad while James photographed documents on a specialized scanner. Marcus asked pointed questions, his expression growing darker with each answer. This is one of the most sophisticated family fraud schemes I've seen, Patricia said finally. The Derek Sullivan you've uncovered has done this before. Multiple times. Your parents were the perfect marks. My parents aren't marks, I said quietly. They're willing participants. They knew the house was mine. They chose to give it away. Marcus and Patricia exchanged glances. That complicates things emotionally, Patricia said gently, but it actually strengthens our legal case. Their knowing participation makes this conspiracy to commit fraud. James looked up from his laptop. I've found more. Derek Sullivan isn't even his original name. He legally changed it 5 years ago from Derek Stanislaw. He's got judgments against him in 3 states. Flow 4, I corrected, showing them my research from the night before. You missed the Nevada case. James smiled appreciatively. You'd make a good investigator. This documentation is thorough. I'm a financial analyst, I said. Documentation is my life. Good, Marcus said, because we're going to bury them in it. Here's what we're going to do. For the next hour, they outlined a strategy that was both aggressive and brilliant. File charges for identity theft immediately. Pursue a civil case for the house value plus damages. Freeze any transfers or sales of the property through an emergency injunction. And most importantly, document every single interaction going forward. They'll escalate, Patricia warned. When cornered people like this get desperate, are you prepared for that? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Unknown number, but local area code. Put it on speaker, Marcus instructed. James, record this. I answered cautiously. Hello, Miss Thompson. This is Dr. Bradley from St. Mary's Hospital. You're listed as an emergency contact for Richard and Linda Thompson. They've been in an accident. My blood froze. What kind of accident? They were brought in about 20 minutes ago. Car accident on Highway 38. They're stable, but your mother is asking for you. I looked at Marcus, who was already pulling up something on his phone. He showed me the screen, a local traffic report showing no accidents on Highway 38. Which hospital did you say you're from? I asked. St. Mary's, the voice repeated, but something was off. The background noise was wrong. Too quiet for an emergency room. And you are? Dr. Bradley, Dr. James Bradley. Marcus showed me another screen. St. Mary's didn't have a Dr. James Bradley on staff. I'll be right there, I lied. Which room are they in? Room, just come to emergency, ask for me. The line went dead. Classic manipulation tactic, Patricia said. Fake emergency to get you away from safety and support. That sounded like Derek trying to disguise his voice, I said. He must have gotten a local phone. My actual phone rang again, this time Rachel's number. Don't answer, Marcus started, but I'd already accepted the call. You called the police on us, she screamed. On your own parents. What kind of monster are you? The kind who's done being a victim, I replied calmly. Tell Derek his fake hospital call didn't work. I don't know what you're talking about. Mom and Dad are devastated. They're at the hotel crying their eyes out because their daughter chose property over family. They chose Derek over their daughter, I corrected, and now they're facing the consequences. Consequences. You want to talk about consequences? Derek's already started proceedings to evict you from that cabin. Yeah, that's right. He found out it's on land that could be commercially developed. His friend Mitchell is prepared to make an offer you can't refuse. Derek can't evict me from property I own outright, I said, and his friend Mitchell can make all the offers he wants. This cabin isn't for sale. Everything's for sale for the right price. Derek's voice came through. He'd taken Rachel's phone. I've done my research on you, Anne-Marie. Single woman, 32, no social life, throws herself into work because she has nothing else. How long do you think you can fight when I make your life miserable? Is that a threat, Derek? It's a promise. I know where you work. I know your routines. I know your weaknesses. You should have just accepted the situation gracefully. Now I'm going to take everything. Derek. Marcus spoke up, his voice carrying the weight of legal authority. This is Marcus Chen of Chen Winters and Associates. You've just made terroristic threats against my client on a recorded line. I suggest you cease all contact immediately. The line went dead. Well, Patricia said with a grim smile, he just made our job easier. Terroristic threats, harassment, attempted fraud. We've got enough to file criminal charges today. But I wasn't listening anymore. I was thinking about Derek's words. He knew where I worked, my routines. He'd been studying me for longer than I'd realized. 3 hours later, we had filed police reports in multiple jurisdictions, initiated fraud alerts with all major credit bureaus, and begun the process for both civil and criminal cases. Marcus's team worked with frightening efficiency. As they prepared to leave, Patricia pulled me aside. "You did the right thing today. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you did. Family fraud is one of the most underreported crimes because victims feel guilty. You're breaking that cycle." After they left, I sat alone in my cabin, the weight of the morning settling over me. My family, the people who were supposed to protect me, had declared war. And Derek, the golden son-in-law, had shown his true face. My phone buzzed. An email from my boss. My heart sank as I read the subject line, "Urgent need to discuss recent allegations." The assault had moved to my workplace. Derek was making good on his promise. I poured myself a glass of wine even though it was barely noon. Outside, the mountain stood solid and unmovable. I thought about all the times I'd compromised, given in, kept the peace. Where had it gotten me? Homeless but for this cabin, betrayed by blood, fighting for my reputation and career, but also for the first time in my life fighting back. My phone rang again. Sarah. "I just saw the police reports," she said without preamble. "The legal community is small. Patricia Winters called me. Are you okay?" "No," I admitted, "but I will be. Sarah, they're going after my job now. Forward me everything. I mean everything. Every email, every text, every voicemail. We're building a harassment case that will make Derek Sullivan wish he'd never heard your name." As I hung up, I realized something had shifted. This morning, I'd stood alone against my family's assault. But I wasn't alone anymore. I had lawyers, investigators, friends who believed me. And most importantly, I had myself, the real me, the one who'd been buried under years of trying to earn love that was never freely given. Derek thought he knew my weaknesses. He thought a single woman with no social life would crumble under pressure, but he'd miscalculated. My isolation wasn't weakness, it was preparation. I'd spent 7 years learning to survive on my own, to fix problems myself, to endure without support. Now, when I finally needed those skills, they were sharp and ready. The war for my life had begun, and I was ready to win. Monday morning arrived with a storm front moving through the mountains, matching my mood perfectly. I'd spent Sunday dealing with the fallout from Derek's workplace attack, grateful that my boss, Catherine Chen, was both intelligent and had dealt with harassment cases before. "Someone sent an anonymous email saying you've been embezzling client funds," Catherine had told me over the phone. It was laughably amateur, no evidence, just accusations. It traced the IP address to a hotel in Big Bear. "I'm guessing this is related to your family situation." I'd given her the abbreviated version, and her response had been immediate. "Take the week off paid. Document everything. If they contact anyone else at the firm, we'll pursue corporate harassment charges. And Anne-Marie, we've run 6 audits on your accounts over the years. Your records are impeccable. Don't let them make you doubt yourself." Now I sat in Marcus Chen's conference room in downtown Los Angeles, surrounded by legal documents and the scent of expensive coffee. Patricia Winters commanded the room like a general planning a siege. Let's review what we've discovered over the weekend. Patricia began pulling up a presentation on the wall screen. "James, take us through the Sullivan situation." James Park stood his investigative report thick as a phone book. Derek Matthew Sullivan, formerly Derek Stanislaw, formerly David Sterling. 3 legal name changes in 15 years. Pattern of relationship fraud across 7 states. 14 known victims, though we suspect there are more. The screen showed photos of women, all successful professionals, all between 28 and 40. His MO is consistent. He targets women from families with property assets and emotional dysfunction. He identifies the family member who's financially responsible but emotionally neglected. Then he leverages family dynamics to execute property theft. "How did he find out about me?" I asked. "Social media deep dive on your sister," James replied. "Rachel posted constantly about her family, complaints about you getting attention for buying the house, photos at family dinners where you're visibly uncomfortable. She painted a perfect picture for someone like Derek to exploit." Each piece of information felt like another weight on my chest. My family's dysfunction had been so obvious that a predator had seen it from states away and traveled here specifically to exploit it. The good news, Marcus interjected, is that Derek got sloppy. His previous victims were isolated, no support systems. You came to us immediately. You documented everything. And most importantly, you didn't sign anything. Tell her about the house situation, Patricia prompted. Marcus pulled up property records. Your parents' deed transfer is fraudulent on multiple levels. First, they can't transfer property with an outstanding mortgage without lender approval. Second, Derek's signature shows signs of forgery when compared to his other documents. Third, and this is the big one, your parents may have committed elder abuse against themselves. What? I couldn't hide my confusion. By California law, if Derek manipulated them into this transfer through undue influence, they're victims of elder abuse even though they participated willingly. It's a fascinating legal paradox that works in our favor. But they knew what they were doing, I protested. They bragged about it at the wedding. Patricia smiled grimly. That's what makes this case so interesting. We're not defending them. We're using the law designed to protect them to invalidate their own fraudulent transfer. It's poetic justice. The strategy session continued for 2 hours. By the end, we had a multi-pronged approach. Criminal charges for identity theft and fraud, civil lawsuit for conversion of property, restraining orders against all parties, cease and desist orders for workplace harassment, federal investigation referral for interstate fraud. There's one more thing, James said as we wrapped up. I found Derek's next target, a woman in Colorado, divorced, inherited a ranch, has a complicated relationship with her siblings. We need to warn her, I said immediately. Patricia nodded approvingly. We'll handle that through proper channels, but it shows Derek's already moving on, which means he's feeling the pressure. I left the law office feeling something I hadn't experienced in years, hope. Not the false hope of finally earning my family's love, but real hope for justice. That afternoon, I returned to my cabin to find a process server waiting. Derek was suing me for defamation. I actually laughed as I accepted the papers. Is that a normal reaction? The server asked. When you're being sued by a serial con artist for telling the truth? Yeah, I'd say it's pretty normal. I called Marcus, who was delighted. He's made another mistake. Discovery in a defamation case means we get to legally demand all his financial records. He just handed us the keys to his entire operation. Tuesday morning brought another surprise. Rachel called from a number I didn't recognize. Don't hang up, she said quickly. I'm at a friend's phone. Derek monitors mine. Every instinct said to end the call, but something in her voice made me pause. You have 30 seconds. I'm pregnant, she blurted out, and I found out Derek's been cheating. There's dating app activity, credit cards I didn't know about. Anne-Marie, I think you were right about everything. And you're calling me because I'm scared. Her voice broke. He gets angry when I ask questions. Last night, he grabbed my wrist when I mentioned the house payments, left bruises. I don't know what to do. I closed my eyes, fighting the urge to say she'd made her bed. Whatever else Rachel was, she was my sister. And now she was a pregnant woman with a potentially dangerous husband. Where are you now? I asked. At my friend Lisa's apartment. Derek thinks I'm at a prenatal appointment. Stay there. I'm sending someone to you. I called Patricia, who immediately connected me with a domestic violence advocate. Within an hour, Rachel was in a safe location with legal counsel. She wants to talk to you, the advocate told me over the phone. She has information about Derek's activities. That evening, I met Rachel at the advocate's office. She looked different without her usual perfect makeup and designer clothes. Younger, scared. I found his laptop, she said without preamble. He had files on 5 women, including you, detailed plans for each one. Financial records, family dynamics, psychological profiles. It was like reading a stalker's playbook. Where's the laptop now? Hidden at Lisa's. I took photos of everything first. She pulled out a phone I didn't recognize. This is a burner Lisa got me. Derek tracks my regular phone. For the next hour, Rachel detailed Derek's operation. The fake business calls were to other women he was grooming. The restaurant investment money had gone to maintaining multiple identities. He had 3 active engagements besides Rachel. He called you the big score, Rachel said quietly. Said your cabin was worth more than all his previous takes combined. Something about the land being zoned for commercial development. Did Mom and Dad know? I had to ask. Rachel's face crumpled. They encouraged him. Dad said you had too much for a single woman anyway. Mom said it was time you learned to share. They were planning to move into your cabin after selling the house. Even knowing their betrayal, hearing the premeditation hit like a physical blow. I'm sorry, Rachel whispered. I knew it was wrong, but I wanted them to love me best for once. You were always the responsible one, the successful one. When Derek chose me, they finally saw me as the winner. And how's that working out? I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. I deserve that, she said. I deserve all of this, but my baby doesn't. Will you help me? Looking at my sister pregnant and terrified, I saw our childhood dynamics playing out again. But this time, I had boundaries. I'll help you leave safely, I said. I'll connect you with resources. But Rachel, I'm not your savior. You need to save yourself. She nodded, tears streaming. I understand. Can I ask one more thing? Can you forgive me? Not now, but someday. Focus on getting safe first, I said. We'll deal with forgiveness later. Wednesday morning, everything accelerated. James had connected Derek's photos of my cabin to Mitchell Keller's development company. They'd already drawn up plans to build luxury condos on my land pending acquisition. They filed a zoning application, Marcus informed me, listed Derek as the property owner. That's fraud on a federal level, since it involves land use permits. The FBI was now officially interested. Derek's interstate pattern had triggered their white-collar crime division. An agent named Sarah Kim called to interview me. We've been tracking someone matching this pattern for 3 years, she said. You're the first victim to come forward with this level of documentation. Would you be willing to wear a wire to record who it? I asked. Derek's reaching out to set up a meeting. He wants to make a deal. With your evidence and Rachel's testimony, he's getting desperate. Thursday afternoon, I sat in a hotel conference room in San Bernardino. FBI agents in the next room, a wire taped to my ribs. Derek had agreed to meet on neutral ground to resolve this misunderstanding. He walked in looking haggard. The golden boy persona was cracking. His perfect hair was disheveled, his designer shirt wrinkled. Anne-Marie, he said, attempting his charming smile. Thanks for meeting me. This whole thing has gotten out of hand. Aye, has it? I kept my voice neutral. Which part, the identity theft, the property fraud, or threatening my job? He sat down heavily. Look, I'll admit I got overzealous about the house. Your parents said it was a wedding gift. I didn't realize there were complications. Is that why you surveyed my cabin 2 weeks before the wedding? His face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. I have security footage, Derek. You, Mitchell Keller, and a surveyor, taking measurements, making plans, 2 weeks before you officially owned anything. He leaned forward, dropping the pretense. Fine. You want the truth. Your family served you up on a silver platter. Daddy talking about his disappointment in his eldest daughter. Mommy wishing you were more like Rachel. They practically begged me to take you down. And the other women in Arizona, Nevada, Colorado? Now he looked genuinely shocked. You've been busy. I'm a financial analyst, Derek. I analyze patterns for a living, and your pattern is sloppy. Not sloppy enough to get caught, he smirked. Until now. So what do you want, money? The house back Rachel's saying she'll testify against me, but we both know she's hormonal and unstable. I want you to leave, I said simply. Leave California, leave my family alone. Leave your next victim in Colorado alone. Just disappear. He laughed, and if I don't, You think your FBI friends next door scare me? You're recording this, obviously. Probably have agents listening. But here's what you don't understand. I haven't done anything they can prove in court. You just admitted to property fraud, I pointed out. I admitted to being overzealous about a gift from my in-laws. Hardly a federal case. He stood. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to drop all charges, sign the cabin over to Mitchell's company for a fair price, and we all walk away. No. No. He seemed genuinely surprised. Do you understand what I can do to you? Your reputation? Your career? I've destroyed women stronger than you. You've destroyed women who were alone, I corrected. I'm not alone anymore. He studied me for a long moment. You've changed. The mouse who scurried around fixing mommy and daddy's house would have caved by now. That woman paid for your wedding reception, I said. She funded your fake investments. She gave you everything you wanted. And you know what she still wasn't enough for you. So yeah, she's gone. Pity, he said, heading for the door. I preferred her. She was easier to break. After he left, Agent Kim entered the room. He's good, admitted just enough to be interesting but not enough for arrest. Yet. But we have what we need to keep building the case. That night, I sat in my cabin, exhausted but oddly at peace. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I expected Derek, but it was Rachel. Lawyer says I can get an annulment based on fraud. Mom and Dad are furious. They say I'm overreacting. I'm staying at the shelter tonight. It's actually nicer than I expected. Thank you. I didn't respond. I wasn't ready for sisterly bonding. Maybe someday, but not yet. Friday morning brought the best news of the week. The mortgage company had frozen all transactions on the house pending fraud investigation. Derek couldn't sell, couldn't borrow against it, couldn't do anything but watch as his carefully constructed plan crumbled. Marcus called with updates. Your parents are panicking. Their lawyer reached out about a settlement. They want to give the house back in exchange for you dropping charges. What charges? I asked. We haven't filed criminal charges against them. They don't know that? Marcus chuckled. Derek's been filling their heads with stories about elderly prison. They're terrified. Good, I said, surprising myself with my lack of sympathy. Let them feel what I felt for 7 years, afraid of losing everything. There's more, Marcus continued. Mitchell Keller's development company, it's leveraged to the hilt. Without your property, he can't get financing for his project. He's looking at bankruptcy if this deal doesn't go through. He's willing to testify against Derek to avoid fraud charges. The dominoes were falling faster than I'd expected. Derek's scheme built on my family's dysfunction and his own greed was collapsing under legal scrutiny. But the week wasn't over. Saturday morning, my parents appeared on my doorstep again. This time without Derek, without Rachel, just 2 elderly people looking suddenly frail. I spoke through the security intercom. You're trespassing again. I have a restraining order being processed. Anne-Marie, please. My mother's voice was different, smaller. We need to talk. We made a mistake. Which one? I asked, giving away my house, trying to steal my cabin, choosing a con man over your daughter. Be specific. All of it, my father said, and I'd never heard him sound so old. Derek's gone. Took Rachel's jewelry, emptied the bank accounts we gave him access to, left a note saying we weren't worth the trouble anymore. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sympathy, nothing. And we're sorry, my mother whispered. We're so sorry. Sorry you got caught. Sorry you got conned, or sorry you betrayed your daughter. Yes, my father said simply. All of it. We need help, Anne-Marie. The lawyer says we could be charged with fraud. We could lose everything. You mean like I did? We know, my mother was crying now. We know what we did. There's no excuse. We were horrible parents, horrible people, but you're our daughter and we're scared. I looked at them through the security camera. They looked like strangers. Frightened elderly strangers who'd gambled on the wrong horse and lost everything. I'll give you the name of a legal aid attorney, I said finally. That's all I can do. That's all I will do. Don't come here again." "Anne-Marie, please," my mother begged. "We're your parents." "No," I said firmly. "You're Derek's former accomplices, and I'm done being your victim. Goodbye." I watched them shuffle back to their car, my mother leaning heavily on my father. They'd aged years in a week. Part of me, the part that had spent 7 years trying to earn their love, wanted to run out and help them. But the woman I'd become stayed inside, secure in her cabin, surrounded by the evidence of their betrayal and her own strength. Derek was still out there, probably targeting his next victim. My parents were facing consequences they'd never imagined. Rachel was in a shelter, rebuilding her life, and I was here in my cabin, finally free from the need for their approval. It wasn't the ending I dreamed of while painting walls and fixing toilets. It was better, because this time I'd chosen myself. And that, as it turned out, was worth more than any house. Sunday evening, Rachel called from the shelter. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "I know you don't want to talk to me," she began, "but I need to tell you something about Derek, about what I found." "I'm listening," I said, settling onto my couch with a cup of tea. "Remember how he always had those business calls at weird hours? I started checking our phone bill. International numbers. I reached out to one of them, pretended to be his assistant, following up on a deal. And it was another woman in Ontario. She owns a ski resort her late husband left her. Derek was 3 weeks away from proposing. He had a ring and everything, a different ring than mine. The revelation shouldn't have surprised me, but the scope of Derek's operation kept expanding. How many others? 7 active targets. Rachel's voice trembled. I found his spreadsheet. He ranked us by asset value and emotional vulnerability. You were marked as highest value, highest difficulty. I was medium value, optimal access point. He had a spreadsheet. I couldn't hide my professional interest. Color-coded, with projected timelines and return on investment calculations. Anne-Marie, he treated us like a business portfolio. There were notes about psychological manipulation tactics for each woman. What did it say about you? Rachel was quiet for a moment. Narcissistic tendencies, desperate for parental approval, jealous of older sister's success, easily manipulated through competition and attention. "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it. "Don't be. It's true. Was true," she corrected herself. "Therapy starts tomorrow. The shelter has a counselor who specializes in victims of romantic fraud." "What about the baby?" 12 weeks along. The doctor says everything looks healthy despite the stress. I'm gonna keep it. Raise it alone. Well, not alone. Lise has been amazing, and there's a support group here for women escaping abusive relationships. I sipped my tea, processing this new version of my sister. What did Mom and Dad say when you told them? They don't believe me. Said I'm being dramatic, that Derek just needs time to cool off. Dad actually suggested I apologize to him. She laughed bitterly. For what? Discovering his con, they're more upset about losing their son than protecting their pregnant daughter. That tracks, I said. How did you do it? Rachel asked suddenly. How did you spend 7 years giving them everything while they treated you like an ATM? I got 18 months of their golden child treatment and I'm already broken. I thought it would change, I admitted. Every mortgage payment, every repair, every sacrifice. I thought eventually they'd see me, value me, love me the way they loved you. They don't love me, Rachel said quietly. They love the idea of me. The pretty daughter who brought home the successful son-in-law, the one who made them look good at church. But actual me, the pregnant, scared woman who needs help, that person is as invisible to them as you always were. We sat in silence for a moment, connected by phone lines and shared revelation. I found something else, Rachel continued, in Derek's files, about Mom and Dad, about why they were so eager to believe him. What kind of something? Financial records from before. Dad didn't just lose his job 7 years ago. He was fired for embezzlement, small amounts over time. The company didn't prosecute if he left quietly. My teacup rattled against the saucer as I set it down. What? And Mom, remember her library job? She was taking money from the donation box, got caught, but blamed it on a volunteer. That's why she really left. Everything shifted. The foundation of my entire sacrifice, built on saving my parents from innocent hardship, crumbled. They hadn't been victims of circumstances. They'd been stealing too, just less successfully than Derek. Why didn't you tell me before? I asked. I didn't know before. Derek investigated everyone. He said it was to protect our interests, make sure we weren't liable for their debts. I believed him because I wanted to, but he was really looking for leverage. And he found it. He found patterns, Rachel corrected. Dad stealing from work, mom from charity, and then me. The daughter willing to stand by while her family stole from her sister. He didn't corrupt us, Anne-Marie. He just gave us permission to be who we already were. The truth hurt more than any lie. I'd spent 7 years sacrificing for people who were already comfortable with taking what wasn't theirs. Derek hadn't transformed them. He'd simply recruited them. Except you, Rachel said into my silence. You were the only honest one. That's why the spreadsheet ranked you as highest difficulty. He couldn't find any moral weakness to exploit, just emotional vulnerability. Fat lot of good that honesty did me, I said. It's doing good now. You have evidence, lawyers, FBI connections. You're going to win because you documented everything legally. The rest of us are scrambling because we participated in fraud. My phone beeped with another call. Marcus Chen. I need to go, I told Rachel. My lawyer's calling. Anne-Marie, wait. I know I have no right to ask, but could we maybe talk again? Not about Derek or family drama, just talk. I'm having a girl. I'd like her to know her aunt. The real one, not the family story version. Maybe, I said, someday. Focus on getting safe first. I switched to Marcus's call, and his voice was electric with excitement. We got him! Derek just tried to flee to Canada. Border Patrol detained him based on our federal warrant. He's in custody. It's over. The criminal part is just beginning, but he can't hurt anyone else. And Anne-Marie, they found evidence of 12 more victims across North America. Your documentation broke open a major fraud ring. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt empty. Derek in custody didn't give me back 7 years. It didn't repair my relationship with my parents. It didn't undo the betrayal. Oh, there's more, Marcus continued. Mitchell Keller wants to make a deal. Full immunity in exchange for testimony and something else. He wants to buy your cabin legitimately. Fair market value plus 30% premium for the trouble. No. Anne-Marie, it's 4 times what you paid. You could buy 3 cabins with that money. This isn't about money, I said. This cabin is the only thing in my life that was ever truly mine. Not shared, not sacrificed, not given away. Mine. It's not for sale. Marcus sighed, but I could hear his smile. I told him you'd say that. He also offered to testify anyway, hoping for leniency. We don't need to give him anything. After we hung up, I sat in my cabin as darkness fell over the mountains. My phone showed 17 missed calls from my parents, probably panicking about Derek's arrest. I deleted them unheard. Rachel had sent a text with an ultrasound image. Her name will be Anne-Marie, 2 words like yours, if that's okay. I stared at the grainy image of my future niece. This tiny person who would carry a version of my name, but hopefully none of my burden. Maybe that could be enough. Maybe rebuilding didn't mean repairing what was broken, but creating something entirely new. It's okay, I texted back. Monday morning brought a parade of federal agents to my cabin. Agent Kim led the team, professional but kind, as she walked me through evidence collection. Your documentation is going to help a lot of women get justice, she said. Derek kept trophies, photos, jewelry, even a handwritten journal rating his conquests. Real sick stuff. What about my parents? I asked. That's up to the state prosecutor. Given their age and Derek's manipulation, they'll probably get probation, maybe community service. Unless what? Unless you want to pursue charges. The house transfer was fraudulent. You have grounds. I thought about my parents somewhere in their empty house facing the consequences of their choices. Probation seems like enough. I just want the house deed cleared. That's happening regardless. The transfer was invalid from day one. You'll have the property back in your name within 60 days. I don't want it, I said, surprising myself. I mean, I want it cleared so I can sell it, but I'm never living there. Too many ghosts. Agent Kim smiled. Fresh start. Something like that. Tuesday afternoon, I met with a realtor about listing the house. Walking through those rooms felt surreal. Every wall I'd painted, every floor I'd refinished, every memory of late nights and early mornings working to save this place. It's in beautiful condition, the realtor gushed. Updated kitchen, restored hardwood, new roof. This will sell fast. Price it to move, I said. I want it gone. What about the contents? Furniture, personal items. I looked around at my parents' belongings. Rachel's abandoned wedding gifts piled in the corner of the dining table where they'd praised Derek while dismissing me. Estate sale. Everything goes. Wednesday, Derek was arraigned on 17 counts of federal fraud. I didn't attend, but Patricia sent updates. He pleaded not guilty, fired his public defender, and demanded to represent himself. Well, classic narcissist move, she texted. He thinks he can charm the jury. This should be entertaining. Rachel called that afternoon. Did you see the news? Derek's arrest made national headlines? Romance scammer targets professional women across 7 states. They're calling him the silver-tongued swindler. Catchy, I said. Mom and Dad saw it too. Dad had a heart episode. Not a full attack, but chest pains. He's in the hospital for observation. Okay, I said, waiting for the punchline. That's it. Okay, you're not rushing to his bedside. Why would I? He didn't rush to help when I needed him. When I was working 2 jobs to save his house. When I was sleeping 4 hours a night. When Derek was stealing my identity. You're right, Rachel said. I don't know what I thought, that you'd still be the same Anne-Marie who always came running. She's gone, I said. She paid for your wedding reception with her last bit of faith and family. I returned the gifts, Rachel said quietly, the ones that came after, sent back every present with a note explaining the annulment. Most people were understanding. Some were horrible. Aunt Patricia called me a disgrace to the family name. Aunt Patricia, who hasn't visited Mom and Dad in 5 years. The very same. Funny how family shows up to judge, but not to help. Thursday brought an unexpected visitor, Lisa Chen, Marcus's daughter and apparently Rachel's friend from college. I recognized her from the wedding, though we'd never actually spoken. I hope you don't mind, she said, standing on my cabin porch. Rachel's staying with me, and she talks about you constantly. I wanted to meet the sister she's trying to become. She said that. Every day, she studies your financial discipline, your documentation habits, your boundaries. It's like watching someone reprogram themselves. I invited her in for coffee, curious about this friend who'd sheltered my sister when family wouldn't. I have to ask, I said. Why help Rachel? You must have seen how she treated me at the wedding. Lisa stirred her coffee thoughtfully. My older sister supported me through medical school, worked 3 jobs, never complained. I took it for granted until she cut me off for being ungrateful. Took 5 years to earn her forgiveness. Did you earn it? Partially. We talk now, have dinner once a month, but it's different. More honest, but less close. I think that's what Rachel's hoping for with you. Not the old relationship, but something real. She told you about the baby's name. Lisa smiled. Anna-Marie Chen will be lucky to have an aunt like you, even if you're not close. Your example from a distance is worth more than false proximity. After she left, I thought about Rachel's transformation. Maybe people could change. Maybe hitting rock bottom forced growth in ways comfort never could. Friday, the house sold. Cash offer quick, close above asking price. A young family with twins who loved the backyard I'd landscaped. The wife was pregnant with their 3rd, excited about the kitchen I'd designed for family cooking. "It's perfect," she'd said during the showing. "You can feel the love in every detail." If only she knew whose love. Mine poured into every corner while the people who lived there poured their love elsewhere. But maybe that was fitting. My love finally appreciated by strangers who'd make real memories in those rooms, who'd raise children that played on floors I'd refinished, learned to cook in the kitchen I'd built. The proceeds would be substantial after paying off the remaining mortgage. Enough to upgrade the cabin, invest in my future, maybe even take a real vacation for the first time in 7 years. Patricia called with updates on the criminal case. Derek's trying to claim diminished capacity, says he has a psychological condition that compels him to seek female approval. Is that even real? His expert witness is a life coach with an online degree. The prosecutor is having a field day. Oh, and more victims are coming forward. Women who were too embarrassed before. Your courage started an avalanche. My courage. It didn't feel like courage. It felt like exhaustion finally winning over fear. That night, Rachel texted a photo from her doctor's appointment. The baby was growing healthy, active. She kicked during the ultrasound, fighter like her aunt. I saved the photo, my niece, a tiny person who'd grow up knowing her aunt existed but at a distance, who'd hopefully never know the weight of sacrificing yourself for family that wouldn't sacrifice for you. Maybe that distance would be the greatest gift I could give her. The knowledge that love didn't require self-destruction, that family was about choice, not obligation, that sometimes the best thing you could do for someone was show them what boundaries looked like. Anna Marie would have what I hadn't, a mother who'd learned hard lessons young, an aunt who valued herself enough to stay away until relationships were healthy, a chance at something better than the dysfunction we'd inherited. It wasn't the family I'd tried to save for 7 years, but maybe it was the family we deserved to become. Monday morning, I met with Janet Williams, the private investigator Marcus had hired. Her office was in a nondescript building in Pasadena, but the wall of commendations and news clippings suggested she was anything but ordinary. "I've been doing this for 23 years, she said, pouring coffee from a pot that looked older than her career. "Mostly corporate fraud, some divorce work. But this case? This is special." She spread files across her desk, each one labeled with a woman's name and a city. Derek Sullivan, David Sterling, Derek Stanislaw. 3 identities, I've confirmed, possibly more. But here's what's interesting. He didn't work alone. Mitchell Keller. He's small-time, local muscle for the property deals. No, Derek had a mentor, someone who taught him the playbook. She pulled out a photo of an older woman, elegant and refined. Meet Margaret Sullivan, his actual mother. I studied the photo. The woman looked like she belonged at a charity gala, dripping diamonds and sophistication. His mother is involved. She pioneered this scam in the 80s. Married 4 times, each husband wealthy, each one dead or bankrupt within 5 years. She taught Derek everything. They even shared victims sometimes. She'd target the parents while he went after the daughters. My skin crawled. She's still active. Retired to Scottsdale 3 years ago with her latest husband's fortune. But she trained Derek well. The psychological profiles, the family dynamic analysis, the long-term planning, all her signatures. Can we prove connection? Working on it, but I found something else. Remember those investment opportunities Derek pitched to your parents? The restaurant, the supplement company? I nodded, remembering my parents writing checks. They were real businesses, failed ones, but real, owned by women Derek had previously conned. He was using your parents' money to pay back his victims just enough to keep them from pressing charges. The twisted brilliance of it made me sick. He was running a Ponzi scheme with emotional manipulation. Exactly. Each new victim funded silence from the previous ones. Until you're the first one who went straight to law enforcement instead of trying to negotiate privately. Why didn't the others report? Janet's expression softened. Same reason it took your sister getting bruised to call for help. Shame. These are successful women who pride themselves on being smart. Admitting they fell for a con man feels like admitting their failures. She pulled out another file. Elizabeth Warren, not the politician, a pediatric surgeon in Phoenix, lost her vacation home to Derek 2 years ago. Jennifer Martinez, tech executive in Seattle, he got her grandmother's inheritance. Sarah Kim, professor at Berkeley, he convinced her to invest her 10-year savings in a fake startup. Each file contained photos, property records, bank statements. The pattern was identical. Meet through family charm, the parents identify the asset, create a crisis, position himself as the solution. I reached out to all of them, Janet continued. Most won't talk, but Elizabeth and Jennifer want to meet you. They're flying in Thursday. Why me? Because you're the one who fought back publicly. You gave them permission to be angry instead of ashamed. Tuesday, my phone rang with an unknown Denver number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Anne-Marie Thompson? A woman's voice, nervous but determined. Yes. My name is Catherine Walsh. I think your former brother-in-law has been contacting me about my ranch. The Colorado target James had mentioned. Tell me everything. For the next hour, Catherine detailed Derek's approach. He'd shown up at her church claiming to be new in town, mentioned his recent divorce, his love of horses, his interest in ranch investment opportunities. Her brothers had been pushing her to sell the family ranch and split the profits. Derek positioned himself as someone who could help her keep it. He seemed so genuine, she said, but then I saw the news about his arrest. The photo looked familiar, but the name was different. I did some digging and found your lawsuit filing. How far did it get? We had dinner twice. He met my brothers. They loved him, of course. Said I should lock him down before someone else did. She laughed bitterly. My brothers, who haven't helped with the ranch in 20 years, suddenly had opinions about my love life. I gave her Agent Kim's number and Marcus's contact information. Document everything, every text, every conversation. And Catherine, don't blame yourself. He's very good at what he does. Were you able to save your property? The house, yes, but it cost me my family. Maybe that's not a loss, she said quietly. Family that would sacrifice you for a stranger isn't worth saving. Wednesday morning, I had an appointment with Dr. Patricia Morse, a psychologist who specialized in family trauma and financial abuse. Marcus had recommended her, saying my testimony would be stronger if I could articulate the psychological impact. Tell me about your relationship with your parents before Derek, she said, settling into her chair with a legal pad. For 2 hours, I unpacked decades of dynamics. How I'd been parentified, early managing household finances by 16, when Dad's gambling problem peaked. How Mom's spending sprees always coincided with my academic achievements, as if she needed to diminish my success. How Rachel's arrival when I was 4 had shifted all positive attention away from me. You were primed for this, Dr. Morse said finally, raised to believe love was transactional, that your worth came from what you could provide. Derek didn't create that dynamic. He exploited it. That doesn't make me feel better. It's not meant to. It's meant to make you understand that healing means recognizing these patterns. Your parents trained you to be their financial savior. When Derek arrived offering to take that role, they didn't hesitate to sacrifice you. They said I was selfish for wanting my own house. The projection is stunning. They lived rent-free for 7 years while you sacrificed your youth and called you selfish for expecting the agreement to be honored. That's not just betrayal. That's psychological abuse. She gave me homework. Write letters I'd never send, documenting every sacrifice, every dismissal, every moment they chose someone else's needs over mine. Not for them, she clarified, for you, to see the pattern written out, to stop minimizing what they did. Thursday arrived with Elizabeth Warren and Jennifer Martinez. We met at a restaurant in Beverly Hills, neutral ground that felt safe. Both women looked like me, professional, put together, carrying invisible wounds. I still have nightmares, Elizabeth said over salads we were all picking at. Not about losing the house, about how stupid I felt. I'm a surgeon. I save children's lives. How did I fall for such obvious manipulation? Because it wasn't obvious, Jennifer interjected. He spent months studying us, our social media, our family dynamics, our weaknesses. He knew my dad had just died, that I was vulnerable. He knew Elizabeth's divorce left her isolated. He's not a common thief. He's a predator. We spent 3 hours sharing stories. The love bombing phase where Derek made them feel special. The isolation tactics where he turned family members against them. The financial requests that started small and escalated. The gaslighting when they questioned anything. He told me I was too controlling, Elizabeth said, that my trust issues from my divorce were ruining our relationship. Meanwhile, he was already talking to contractors about renovating my property for resale. He convinced me my brothers were jealous of my success, Jennifer added, said they were trying to sabotage my happiness. I didn't talk to them for 6 months. By the time I realized the truth, he'd already transferred my inheritance into joint accounts. How did you recover? I asked. Therapy. Lots of it, Elizabeth said, and accepting that recovery isn't linear. Some days I'm angry, others I'm embarrassed. Sometimes I feel strong for surviving, other times I feel weak for falling for it. The money's gone, Jennifer said bluntly. I'll never get it back, but I got my brothers back. Turns out they'd been warning me about him all along. I just couldn't hear it through his manipulation. Do your families know the truth? Mine does now, Elizabeth said. Took 2 years to tell them. My mom cried for days, blaming herself for introducing us at her book club. My family still thinks I'm being dramatic, Jennifer admitted. They met Derek twice and thought he was charming. They can't reconcile that with the con man who stole my inheritance. It's easier to believe I'm bitter about a failed relationship. We exchanged contact information, forming an unfortunate sisterhood. As they left for the airport, Elizabeth turned back. Thank you, she said, for fighting publicly, for showing us it wasn't our fault. The shame kept me silent for 2 years. You gave me permission to be angry instead. Friday morning brought major news. The FBI had arrested Margaret Sullivan in Scottsdale. She'd been running her own con on her current husband, slowly draining his accounts while he battled dementia. The evidence from Derek's case had exposed her current scheme. Agent Kim called with updates. She's claiming ignorance of Derek's activities, but we have emails, money transfers, even a shared victim database. This is bigger than we thought. There's a whole network of these family-based fraud schemes. How many victims? Between them, over 100 that we've identified. Possibly hundreds more too ashamed to come forward. You've helped expose a massive criminal enterprise. That afternoon, Rachel had her 20-week appointment. She texted updates and ultrasound photos. The baby was perfect, growing strong. She'd started a job at Lisa's medical practice doing billing and reception work. It's entry level, she texted, but it's honest work. First paycheck I've ever earned myself. Is this how you felt at 22? I'm proud and exhausted, I replied. Yeah, that's it exactly. I'm sorry it took me this long to understand. Saturday, I decided to visit the house one last time before the new owners took possession. The rooms echoed with memories. Here's where Dad promised I could have the master bedroom someday. There's where Mom said she was proud of me for the first and last time. The kitchen where Derek had charmed them while I served dinner I'd cooked. In the garage, I found boxes of photos my parents had left behind in their hasty exit. Pictures of family vacations I'd paid for but wasn't in because someone needed to take the photo. Rachel's graduation, where I'd worn a hand-me-down dress because I'd spent my clothing budget on her party. Christmas mornings where my gifts were practical, tools for house repairs, while Rachel got jewelry. I considered taking them evidence of a childhood spent in service. Instead, I left them for the estate sale. Let strangers puzzle over why one daughter was always slightly outside the frameworking while others celebrated. My phone rang. Patricia Winters. Derek's trying to make a deal. He'll plead guilty to lesser charges in exchange for testifying against his mother. The prosecutor wants your input. What does he get? 10 years instead of 25. Minimum security, possibility of parole in 6. I thought about Derek in prison for 6 years versus all his victims living with lifelong scars. Take the deal if it guarantees Margaret gets maximum sentences. She created him. She profited from our pain. She should pay the highest price. That's what I told them you'd say. You're thinking like a prosecutor now? I'm thinking like a survivor, I corrected. As I locked the house for the last time, I felt something release in my chest. This place had been my prison, disguised as my purpose. Every room held a ghost of who I'd tried to be. The dutiful daughter, the selfless sister, the family savior. None of those ghosts followed me to my car. They belonged to this house now, along with all the other things I was leaving behind. Let the new family fill these rooms with better memories. Real love instead of performed obligation. My phone buzzed with a text from Catherine Walsh in Colorado. Ranch is safe. Brothers are furious but can't fight the law. Thank you for the warning. You saved my life. I sat in my car looking at the house one last time. I hadn't saved my family, but maybe I'd saved myself. And apparently that example was saving others. The investigation would continue. More victims would come forward. Derek and Margaret would face justice. My parents would live with their choices. Rachel would raise her daughter with hard-earned wisdom. And I would drive away from this house, this history, this version of myself who believed sacrifice equaled love. The woman who'd bought this house at 25 was gone. The woman driving away at 32 knew better. Love wasn't about what you could give up. It was about what you refused to lose. And I refused to lose myself again. Monday morning started with a call from the prosecutor's office. Derek had agreed to testify against his mother in exchange for a reduced sentence. They needed my victim impact statement by Friday for the sentencing phase. Take your time, the assistant district attorney advised. But don't hold back. The judge needs to understand the full scope of damage these people caused. I'd barely hung up when my doorbell camera alerted. My parents stood outside my cabin looking haggard. My father clutched papers in his shaking hands. You have a restraining order hearing next week, I said through the intercom. You shouldn't be here. Please, Anne-Marie, just 5 minutes. We have nowhere else to go. That's not my problem. The bank is foreclosing on our credit cards, my mother blurted out. The house sale money is frozen because of the investigation. We can't access our accounts. We're living in our car. I felt nothing. No surge of sympathy, no automatic need to fix their problems. Just a mild curiosity about how people who'd spent their lives taking from others handled having nothing to take. There are shelters, I said. Social services, churches, all the places you told me about when I was struggling. Those are for poor people. My father said the irony apparently lost on him. You are poor people, I pointed out, by your own choices. Derek tricked us. My mother's voice cracked. We're victims too. You gave him my house at Rachel's wedding reception, in front of 200 people, while I sat there. That wasn't Derek's trick. That was your cruelty. We thought we were helping Rachel by stealing from me, again, like you've done my whole life. I watched through the camera as they stood on my porch, reality finally catching up after decades of taking without consequence. My mother had sold her jewelry, judging by the pale marks on her fingers, where rings used to be. My father's clothes hung loose. The stress diet of facing your own choices. If you're not gone in 2 minutes, I'm calling the sheriff, I said. But Anne-Marie? 1 minute, 50 seconds. They stumbled back to their car, a 20-year-old sedan I didn't recognize. Probably all they could afford after Derek drained their savings. As they drove away, I noticed a parking ticket fluttering on their windshield. Even minor consequences seemed beyond their ability to handle now. Tuesday brought an unexpected call from my childhood neighbor, Mrs. Chen. She'd lived next door for 40 years, watched me grow up, bought Girl Scout cookies even though she was diabetic. I heard about the house sale, she said. I wanted you to know how proud I am of you for surviving that family. You knew? Honey, the whole neighborhood knew. We watched you mow the lawn at 10 years old while your father watched football. Saw you cooking dinner at 12 while your mother shopped for things she couldn't afford. Noticed when you started working at 16 and your parents suddenly had new cars. Why didn't anyone say anything? We tried. Called social services once when you were 14. Your parents convinced them everything was fine. You backed them up, said you liked helping out. After that, we just tried to support you quietly. Babysitting jobs that paid too much, buying fundraiser items you weren't actually selling. Small things. I remembered those jobs, that extra money I'd always attributed to luck or kindness. Thank you. I testified for the prosecutor, she continued, about what I observed over the years. Other neighbors did too. Your parents aren't the victims they're pretending to be. We all saw how they treated you versus Rachel. After we hung up, I sat with the knowledge that my childhood hadn't been as isolated as I'd thought. People had seen. Some had tried to help. The community I'd thought was indifferent had actually been constrained by systems that protected parents over children. Wednesday afternoon, Derek's lawyer contacted Marcus about retrieving Derek's belongings from the house. Apparently, he'd left personal items in what was supposed to be his new home. Let him retrieve them under supervision, I agreed. But I want an inventory of everything he takes. The list when it came back was revealing. Expensive watches I'm sure he'd bought with other women's money, designer clothes with the tags still on, and 3 engagement rings in different styles. He was already planning his next proposals, Marcus told me. The FBI found correspondence with 2 women in Texas and 1 in British Columbia. You didn't just save Catherine Walsh, you prevented multiple future victims. Thursday, I met with Dr. Morse again. The letter-writing exercise had unlocked memories I'd buried. I found a diary from when I was 9, I told her. My teacher had asked what we wanted to be when we grew up. I wrote, someone who rests. 9 years old and already exhausted, she observed. What else? Report cards with teacher comments. Anne-Marie is very responsible. She's helpful with younger students, mature beyond her years. They saw a child acting like an adult and praised it instead of questioning why. The system failed you repeatedly. School neighbors, extended family. Everyone saw a capable child and used that capability instead of protecting the child. Rachel's report cards were different. Needs to apply herself. Could do better if she tried. But my parents framed those as evidence of her creative spirit, while my good grades were just expected. You were the family sacrifice, Dr. Morse said gently. Every dysfunctional system needs one. The person who maintains stability, while others create chaos. When you finally stopped playing that role, the whole system collapsed. Good, I said, meaning it. Friday morning, I submitted my victim impact statement. 8 pages detailing not just the financial theft, but the emotional devastation. The 7 years of sacrifice built on a lifetime of preparation, the betrayal that cut deeper than any stranger's crime could have. That afternoon, my parents' car was back. This time, they didn't approach the cabin. They parked at the end of my driveway engine, running waiting. I watched through security cameras as they sat there for 3 hours. Finally, my father got out and placed something in my mailbox before driving away. Against my better judgment, I retrieved it after they left. A letter in my mother's shaky handwriting. We know you hate us. We deserve it, but we need you to know some things before it's too late. Your father has liver disease from drinking that started when he lost his job. I have diabetes I can't afford to manage. We're not asking for money or forgiveness. Just wanted you to know in case you want to say goodbye eventually. We're staying at the Salvation Army shelter on 3rd Street. Mom. I crumpled the letter, then smoothed it out again. Even now, even homeless and sick, they were still manipulating. Still trying to force their way back into my life through guilt and obligation. I took a photo of the letter and sent it to Dr. Morse. Her response was swift. Classic hoovering technique. When direct appeals fail, they switch to health crises. Whether real or exaggerated, it's designed to trigger your caretaking response. Stay strong. Saturday, Derek's sentencing hearing approached. His mother, Margaret, had been denied bail deemed a flight risk with resources hidden in offshore accounts. The investigation had expanded to include a whole network of romance scammers she'd trained. Agent Kim called with updates. We've identified over 300 victims between Margaret's network and Derek's operations. Total losses exceed $50 million. This is one of the largest family fraud conspiracies we've ever prosecuted. Will the victims get restitution? Some. We've frozen about $12 million in assets. It'll be distributed proportionally. You should receive enough to cover your legal fees and some of the house payments. Give my portion to the victims who lost more, I said. I got my house back. I have my cabin. That's enough. Are you sure you're entitled? I'm entitled to move forward without blood money, donate it to fraud prevention education or something. I don't want any more ties to that family. That evening, Lisa called. Rachel wanted me to ask if you'd consider being Anna Marie's emergency guardian. Not active involvement, just someone on paper if something happens to her. Why not you? I'm already listed, but she wants backup. Someone with no connection to Derek or your parents. Someone who'd protect Anna Marie from family patterns. I thought about my future niece growing in a womb stressed by betrayal, but also strengthened by hard choices. Send me the paperwork. Really, every child deserves someone who will put their needs first. I can be that person from a distance. Sunday arrived gray and drizzling, matching my mood. Tomorrow, Derek would be sentenced. Tuesday, my parents faced their restraining order hearing. Wednesday, the house would officially close. I spent the day organizing evidence files, backup drives, documentation that would live in safe deposit boxes forever. Proof that this had happened, that I'd survived it, that I'd fought back and won. My phone rang. Unknown number, local area code. Hey, hello. Heavy breathing. Then my father's voice slurred with alcohol. You killed us. You know that your own parents killed us for money. You're drunk, I observed. So what? My daughter destroyed our lives, turned everyone against us, sided with criminals over family. You sided with criminals over family, I corrected. You chose Derek over me. He was supposed to take care of things. The words exploded out. We're old sick. Rachel's useless. You were supposed to keep supporting us, but you got selfish. Derek promised he'd handle everything if we just gave him the house. There it was, the truth finally spilling out through alcohol and desperation. So you traded me for a caretaker, I said calmly, sold my future for the promise that someone else would be your meal ticket. We're your parents, he was crying now. You're supposed to take care of us. I did. For 7 years. It was never enough. It would never be enough. You'd have bled me dry and asked why I didn't have more to give. Ungrateful. I hung up, blocked the number, added it to the pile of evidence for the restraining order hearing. My family was done. The parents who'd raised me to be their servant had finally overplayed their hand. The sister who'd basked in favoritism while I drowned had learned its price. The golden son-in-law who'd promised to solve their problems had solved mine instead. By trying to take everything, they'd freed me from the obligation to give anything. Tomorrow, Derek would be sentenced. My parents would face legal consequences. Rachel would continue building her new life, and I would wake up in my cabin, surrounded by mountains and possibilities, finally understanding that the best thing my family ever did for me was show me exactly who they were. The investigation was over. The legal battles were ending. But my life, my real life, the one where I chose myself first, that was just beginning. Monday morning arrived with clear skies and a sense of finality. I dressed carefully in my best navy suit, the one I'd bought for important client presentations. Today's performance was for myself. The federal courthouse in downtown Los Angeles was intimidating by design. Marcus met me at the security checkpoint along with Patricia and Agent Kim. We weren't alone. Elizabeth Warren had flown in from Phoenix, Jennifer Martinez from Seattle, Catherine Walsh from Denver, even women I didn't recognize, all here to see Derek Sullivan face justice. Victim support coordinators are available, Agent Kim reminded us. This might get emotional. The courtroom was packed. Media outlets had picked up the story of the romance Robin Hood who'd stolen from accomplished women to fund his lavish lifestyle. I hated the nickname. Robin Hood helped the poor. Derek helped himself. He entered in an orange jumpsuit, shackled at wrists and ankles. The golden boy persona was gone. His perfect hair hung limp, his dental veneers looked garish against his jail pallor. When his eyes swept the gallery and saw the rows of his victims, something flickered across his face. Not remorse, annoyance. Judge Patricia Hawkins presided, a woman known for taking financial crimes seriously. The prosecutor, ADA Michael Chang, laid out the case methodically. 17 counts of wire fraud, 12 counts of identity theft, 8 counts of money laundering. The numbers felt clinical until he started reading victim names. Sarah Kim lost her tenure savings. Maria Gonzalez lost her mother's inheritance. Elizabeth Warren lost her vacation home. Anne Marie Thompson lost 7 years of her life. When my name was read, Derek actually smirked. That small gesture, that hint of pride at what he'd accomplished, erased any microscopic doubt about pursuing charges. Derek's public defender tried valiantly to paint him as a victim of his mother's influence, a lost soul seeking love in all the wrong places. The gallery's collective eye roll was almost audible. Then Derek took the stand. Against counsel's advice, he'd insisted on speaking for himself. "I want to apologize," he began, looking directly at the media cameras, "to all the women I've hurt. I was sick, addicted to the thrill of the chase, but I'm getting help now." "Mr. Sullivan," Judge Hawkins interrupted, "please address the court, not the cameras." He pivoted smoothly. "Your Honor, I take full responsibility for my actions. My mother taught me that women were marks, not people. I see now how wrong that was." "Is that why you created detailed psychological profiles of your victims?" ADA Chang asked. "Because you saw them as people?" Derek faltered. "Those were business documents." "Business. So this was a business to you?" "No, I meant... You kept spreadsheets ranking women by asset value and emotional vulnerability. You called it your portfolio. Does that sound like someone seeking love?" I was confused. "Or were you confused when you surveyed Ms. Thompson's cabin while planning to steal her family home? Were you confused when you applied for credit cards in her name? Were you confused when you threatened her job?" Derek's mask slipped completely. "She was supposed to just accept it. Her parents gave me that house. She had no right to fight back." The courtroom erupted. Judge Hawkins gavelled for order while Derek's lawyer tried to silence him, but the damage was done. The real Derek had shown himself. "No further questions," Chang said. The victim impact statements came next. Elizabeth spoke about missing her daughter's wedding because she couldn't afford to fly home after Derek drained her accounts. Jennifer described the humiliation of asking her brothers for money after years of priding herself on independence. When my turn came, I walked to the podium on steady legs. I'd practiced this speech 100 times, but looking at Derek's sullen face, I threw it out. "Derek Sullivan didn't just steal money or property," I began. "He stole trust. He weaponized family love against us. He studied our wounds and poured salt in them. But he made one mistake. He assumed we'd stay silent, that our shame would protect him. He was wrong." I looked around the courtroom at the other women. "We're not victims anymore. We're survivors. We're witnesses. We're the reason he's in chains today. And Derek, that spreadsheet where you ranked us, we were all perfect tens. Perfect tens at fighting back." The gallery applauded until Judge Hawkins restored order. Derek wouldn't meet my eyes. The sentencing came after lunch. Judge Hawkins didn't mince words. Mr. Sullivan, you've shown a callous disregard for the women you targeted. Your systematic approach to emotional and financial abuse demonstrates a level of planning that precludes any claim of mental illness or momentary lapse. You're a predator, plain and simple. She continued, I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years supervised release. You'll pay full restitution to your victims and register as a financial offender. You're prohibited from using dating websites, social media, or any platform that could facilitate similar schemes. Derek's face went white. His lawyer whispered urgently, but it was over. As marshals led him out, he turned to the gallery. This isn't over, he shouted. You'll all pay for this, especially you, Anne-Marie. Add terroristic threats to his file, Judge Hawkins instructed calmly. Transport the defendant immediately. Outside the courthouse, media swarmed. I'd prepared a statement with Marcus's help. Today's verdict doesn't erase the pain Derek Sullivan caused, but it ensures he can't hurt anyone else. To any woman who's been victimized by romance fraud, you're not alone. You're not stupid. You're not to blame. Speak up. Seek help. Fight back. Reporters shouted questions about my family, the house, the wedding betrayal. I walked past them all. That story was private, even if the crime was now public. Elizabeth caught up with me at my car. Thank you, she said simply. I couldn't have done this without seeing you do it first. We did it together, I corrected. Tuesday morning's restraining order hearing was anticlimactic after Derek's dramatic sentencing. My parents shuffled into the small courtroom looking diminished. Their court-appointed lawyer was young and overwhelmed. I presented my evidence methodically, the attempted break-ins at my cabin, the harassing calls to my workplace, the drunk dialing, the manipulation letters, security footage of them stalking my property. My parents' defense was predictable. They were desperate. They were Derek's victims too. They just wanted their daughter back. Your daughter, who paid your mortgage for 7 years, Judge Martinez asked, the one whose house you gave away at a wedding reception. My mother started crying. My father stared at his hands. Their lawyer tried to argue financial desperation mitigated their behavior. Desperation doesn't justify harassment, Judge Martinez ruled. Restraining order granted. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, you're prohibited from coming within 500 feet of Ms. Thompson's person residence or workplace for 3 years. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. My parents left without looking at me. Their lawyer muttered something about an appeal, but we all knew it was over. They'd lost their last connection to the daughter they'd trained to serve them. Wednesday. The house closing went smoothly. The young family was excited, the wife already planning where to put the nursery. I signed papers with no emotion, just relief. You took amazing care of this place, the husband said. We promised to love it as much as you did. Love it better, I suggested. Love it with the people who live in it, not despite them. They looked confused, but nodded. They'd understand eventually when their children ran through rooms I'd renovated alone, when their family gathered in the kitchen I'd built, while mine gathered without me. Thursday brought news from Agent Kim. Margaret Sullivan had been denied plea deals and faced trial for 43 counts of fraud spanning 30 years. She'd trained not just Derek, but 6 other children in the family fraud business. It's like a criminal finishing school, that Kim explained. She'd identify vulnerable young people, train them in manipulation tactics, then set them loose on targets. Derek was her star pupil until you brought him down. What about the others? 2 in custody. 3 fled the country. 1 died in a car accident fleeing arrest. We're working with Interpol on the international cases. The scope kept expanding. What I'd thought was personal betrayal was a part of an entire industry built on exploiting family trust. Friday, I returned to work full-time. Catherine had kept my position open, even promoting me in absentia for exceptional performance under extreme circumstances. My new office had a mountain view and a door that locked. We also instituted new security protocols, she informed me. Anyone claiming to have information about employees has to go through legal first. We won't let another Derek Sullivan threaten our people. My team welcomed me back with respectful distance. They'd followed the news, knew what I'd endured, but work was work, and I gratefully dove into spreadsheets and analysis that made sense. That evening, Rachel texted ultrasound photos. Anna Marie was developing perfectly already, showing a strong heartbeat and active movements. Doctor says she's measuring ahead of schedule, Rachel wrote. Overachiever like her aunt. I saved the photos to a folder labeled Future. Not ready for regular contact, but unwilling to miss these milestones entirely. Saturday, a package arrived with no return address. Inside was a leather journal and a note from those of us who couldn't speak up. Thank you for your voice. The journal contained letters from Derek's victims, some who'd testified, others who'd stayed silent. Each told their story, their survival, their gratitude that someone had finally stopped him. He convinced me I was crazy, one wrote, that his lies were my paranoia. You proved I was sane all along. I lost my grandmother's house, another shared, but seeing him sentenced helped me stop blaming myself. Page after page of women finding strength in shared truth. I added my own entry at the end, then sent it to the next woman on the list. Let it circulate among us, a traveling testament to survival. Sunday afternoon, Dr. Morse and I had our final regular session. I'd continue monthly check-ins, but the crisis phase was over. How do you feel about everything that's happened? She asked. Free, I answered immediately. Tired and sometimes sad, but free. I spent 32 years trying to earn love that was never available. Now I can stop trying. What's next? I don't know, and that's okay. For the first time in my life, I'm not managing anyone else's crisis or paying for anyone else's choices. I can just be. That's the goal, she smiled. To exist without justification, to rest without guilt, to choose relationships instead of accepting obligations. As I drove home to my cabin, I thought about the 9-year-old who'd wanted to be someone who rests. She'd had to wait 23 years, but she was finally getting her wish. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Derek's sentencing had made national headlines. Romance scammer gets 15 years after victims unite. The article featured quotes from prosecutors praising the Thompson case for exposing widespread fraud. I turned off my phone. Let the world process Derek's downfall. I had a fireplace to enjoy a book, to read a life to live that belonged to nobody but me. The family who'd raised me to be their sacrifice had lost everything trying to take more. The man who'd promised to solve their problems had solved mine instead. The house that had consumed 7 years of my life now sheltered a family who'd appreciate it. And I sat in my cabin surrounded by mountains and possibility, finally understanding that the best revenge wasn't success or vindication or even justice. It was peace. Monday morning started with an unexpected call from Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, who'd been absent for years, but suddenly found time to judge Rachel's situation. Anne-Marie, I heard about the trial. She began without preamble. Honestly, taking your parents to court? Have you no shame? I didn't take them to court, I corrected. I took a con artist to court. They chose to involve themselves. They're family. You don't air family business in public. They aired it pretty publicly when they gave away my house at a wedding reception. That's different. That was a celebration. You turned it into something ugly. I laughed, actually laughed. No, Aunt Patricia, they turned it into something ugly when they stole from me. I just refused to pretend otherwise. Your mother is sick. Your father is dying. And where were you when they were destroying their lives, when they were gambling away money, when they were stealing from employers? Oh, right, you were preserving family appearances from a safe distance. How dare you? Goodbye, Aunt Patricia. Don't call again. I blocked her number, adding it to the growing list of relatives who'd emerged to defend people they'd ignored for years. Tuesday brought a meeting with my financial advisor. The house sale proceeds minus legal fees left me with a substantial sum. Combined with my savings and the promotion, I was in the best financial position of my life. Recommendations? I asked. Diversify, index funds, bonds, maybe some real estate investment trusts. You could retire comfortably at 55 if you maintain this trajectory. What about starting a foundation? He raised an eyebrow. What kind? Financial fraud education, specifically family-based fraud, teaching people to recognize the signs, protect themselves, seek help without shame. That's admirable and tax advantageous. We could structure it as a charitable trust. We spent 2 hours planning the Anne Marie Thompson Foundation for Financial Fraud Prevention. It felt right turning my pain into purpose without letting it consume me. Wednesday. Rachel called from her new apartment. She'd moved out of Lisa's place into a small one-bedroom near her job. I wanted you to know I'm in therapy, she said. Individual and group. The group is for women who've experienced intimate partner fraud. I'm the youngest by 10 years. How's it going? Hard. Facing how complicit I was in family dynamics, how I benefited from your exploitation and never questioned it. The therapist says I was trained too, just differently. What do you mean? You were trained to give. I was trained to take. Neither of us was taught healthy relationships. The difference is, I enjoyed my role while you suffered in yours. The honesty was refreshing, and now I'm learning. Working for my money is exhausting but satisfying. Paying my own bills is scary but empowering. Being pregnant alone is terrifying but better than being trapped with Derek. You're not alone. You have Lisa, your group medical support. I know, I meant without a partner, though honestly, after Derek, I can't imagine trusting anyone romantically for a very long time. Trust yourself first, I suggested. The rest comes later, or doesn't. Both are okay. She was quiet for a moment. I've been writing letters to Anna Marie, things I want her to know, lessons I'm learning. Would you consider writing one about boundaries or self-worth or anything you think she should know? I'll think about it, I said. Thursday afternoon, Catherine called me into her office. We've been approached by a documentary filmmaker. She wants to feature your story in a series about financial fraud. The company supports whatever decision you make. I looked at the proposal. A reputable filmmaker known for sensitive handling of difficult subjects, focus on education and prevention rather than sensationalism. I need time to consider it. Of course, but Anne Marie, your story could help thousands of women recognize similar patterns. That's powerful. That evening, I called Sarah Martinez, my college friend and first legal advocate. Documentary, she said. That's major. Are you ready for that exposure? I don't know. Part of me wants to stay private, rebuild quietly, but another part thinks about all the women who messaged me after the trial, the ones still trapped who might see themselves in my story. What would 9-year-old Anne-Marie want? The question stopped me cold. That exhausted child who just wanted rest. Would she want her story told? She'd want other little girls to know it's not normal, I said slowly. That being the family sacrifice isn't love. There's your answer. Friday, I agreed to the documentary with conditions. No footage at my cabin, no revealing current location details. Focus on the crime and recovery, not personal drama. Final approval on edits. Absolutely, the filmmaker agreed. This is your story. You control how it's told. Saturday brought another family surprise. My cousin Mark Patricia's son reached out through LinkedIn. Hey, Anne-Marie, heard about everything. My mom's being horrible, but I wanted you to know some of us get it. I remember holidays where you cooked for 20 people while Rachel opened presents. We saw it. We should have said something. I stared at the message. Another witness to my childhood who'd stayed silent. How many people had watched me drowning and decided not to throw a rope? Thank you for reaching out, I replied. I appreciate the acknowledgement. Would you maybe want to grab coffee sometime? I know we weren't close growing up, but I'd like to change that if you're open to it. I considered it. Mark had been kind when we were kids, sharing his Halloween candy when my parents forgot to take me trick-or-treating. Small gestures that had meant everything then. Maybe after the holidays, I wrote, I'm taking things slow with family. Understood. The offer stands whenever you're ready. Sunday, I met with the prosecutor's office about restitution distribution. The $12 million in frozen assets would be divided among Derek's victims. Even refusing my portion, the fund would help women rebuild their lives. We're also using this case for training, Ada Chang informed me, teaching prosecutors to recognize family fraud patterns. Your documentation methods are becoming standard recommendation. Good. Make it harder for the next Derek. There's something else. Margaret Sullivan wants to meet with you. I felt my body tense. Why? She claims she has information about other victims, names Derek kept hidden. She'll only share them with you. That's manipulation. Probably, but if there are other victims who could receive restitution? I thought about women still blaming themselves, still suffering in silence. Supervised meeting, recorded, at the federal facility. She shares the names first or I walk. I'll arrange it. Monday morning, I drove 3 hours to the federal detention facility where Margaret Sullivan was held. The woman who trained her son to destroy lives wanted to face one of his victims. She looked smaller than her photos. 73 years old, gray-haired, wearing orange that washed out her complexion. But her eyes were sharp, calculating. Anne-Marie, she said pleasantly, like we were meeting for tea, thank you for coming. The names, I said. Then we talk. She slid a paper across the table, 12 named cities, approximate dates. Derek's private collection, women he conned before me who never came forward. I photographed the list, sent it immediately to Agent Kim. Now what? I wanted to see you. Margaret studied me. The woman who broke my best student. Your son. Same thing, really. I had 6 children. 3 biological, 3 chosen. Trained them all in the family business. Derek was my masterpiece. Until you. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm facing 40 years and I'm 73. I'll die in prison. My legacy will be victims and trials. But you... She leaned forward. You changed the game. Made it impossible for the next generation to operate. I'm almost impressed. You're proud of destroying lives. I'm proud of surviving, she corrected. My first husband beat me. The second gambled away our savings. The third tried to have me committed to steal my inheritance. So I learned to strike first. Take before being taken. Use before being used. And you taught your children the same damage. I taught them power. You taught them consequences. She smiled, a cold expression. Derek called me crying from jail, said you wouldn't just accept things like the others, that you fought back with lawyers and documentation instead of tears and pleading. He couldn't understand it. I learned from experts, I said. My parents taught me to document everything, just not for the reasons they thought. Margaret laughed, actually laughed. Oh, that's beautiful. They created their own destroyer, poetic justice at its finest. Are we done here? One more thing. Derek has journals. Detailed notes on every woman he studied, including ones he didn't pursue. Get them from his storage unit. Unit 247 at Secure Store on Crenshaw. Give those women warning. Why are you helping? I'm not. I'm creating my own narrative. The reformed criminal who helped victims in the end. Might shave a few years off sentencing. She stood, chains clanking. But also professional courtesy. You beat us at our own game. That deserves respect. I left feeling dirty. Margaret's respect was worse than Derek's hatred, but I forwarded the storage unit information to Agent Kim, who promised immediate action. Tuesday's mail brought an unexpected delivery, a package from the estate sale company items they thought I might want from my parents' belongings. Inside were photos I'd forgotten existed. My college graduation where I'd paid for my own cap and gown, Rachel's sweet 16 party that I'd planned and funded while working 2 jobs, Christmas mornings where my presents were house repair tools while Rachel got jewelry, but also rare moments of what looked like normalcy. My father teaching me to ride a bike, my mother braiding my hair for school photos, glimpses of parents who might have loved me before dysfunction consumed them. I kept 3 photos, burned the rest. The past was gone, only lessons remained. Wednesday brought Derek's storage unit reveal. Agent Kim called with updates. 63 journals dating back 8 years, detailed psychological profiles on hundreds of women. Most he never approached, but the research is disturbing. Workplace schedules, family dynamics, financial records. He was a one-man surveillance operation. The 12 names Margaret gave, all legitimate. We're reaching out carefully. Some have moved on, rebuilt. They might not want to revisit trauma, but they deserve the option of restitution and closure. What about the ones he didn't pursue? We're notifying them too. Imagine finding out you were researched for potential fraud. It's traumatic, but better than staying vulnerable. That night, I couldn't sleep. Thinking about women going about their lives unaware they'd been studied like prey. Derek in prison wasn't enough. The system that created him, enabled him, protected him, until I forced transparency needed dismantling. I started writing, not a journal entry or victim statement, but a business plan. The foundation was just the beginning. What about an app that verified dating profiles against fraud databases, support groups in every major city, partnerships with financial institutions to flag suspicious relationship-based transactions? By dawn, I had 20 pages of ideas. The girl who'd wanted to rest at 9 had become a woman who couldn't stop fighting at 32. But this time, I was fighting for others instead of just surviving myself. Thursday, Lisa called about Rachel. She wanted me to invite you to the baby shower. Small gathering, just supportive friends. No family drama, but she understands if you're not ready. When? Next month. Sunday afternoon, my apartment, so you know the space is safe. I thought about boundaries versus bridges, about my future niece who deserved celebration, even if her origins were complicated. I'll think about it, I said, but thank you for the respectful invitation. Friday's therapy session with Dr. Morse focused on the Margaret meeting. She tried to manipulate you even while helping, Dr. Morse observed. Classic narcissistic behavior, unable to do good without extracting benefit. She reminded me of my mother, different crimes, same core, taking from others while claiming victimhood. Do you see patterns? Everywhere. Derek learned from Margaret, who learned from her trauma. My parents learned from their parents, who probably had their own dysfunction. Rachel learned from watching me serve and them take. Cycles spinning through generations. And you? I'm breaking the cycle. No children to inherit the damage. No family to enable the patterns. Just me building something new. That's powerful and lonely. Sometimes. But less lonely than being surrounded by people who saw me as a resource instead of a person. Saturday, the documentary filmmaker visited for our first real interview. 6 hours of questions, carefully walking through the timeline. She was skilled drawing out details without sensationalizing pain. What do you want viewers to take from your story? She asked finally. That family isn't sacred when it's toxic. That love isn't measured in sacrifice. That fighting back isn't selfish. And mostly, that you can survive betrayal and build something better from the ashes. Sunday evening, as I reviewed the week's revelations, my phone rang. Unknown number, but local. Anne-Marie, this is Eleanor Walsh, Catherine's mother from Colorado. My stomach dropped. Is Catherine okay? Thanks to you, yes, but I'm calling to apologize. Catherine told me how you warned her about Derek, how your family tried to do to you what we almost did to her. I'm ashamed of how quickly we believed a stranger over our daughter. You didn't go through with it. Only because you spoke up. We were days away from pressuring her to sign papers. Her brothers and I were completely taken in. We could have destroyed her life chasing his promises. But you didn't. No, we didn't. And we're in family therapy now, learning why we were so quick to side against Catherine, why we valued a man's attention over our daughter's lifetime of responsibility. It's ugly work facing our own prejudices. It's necessary work, I said. Could you possibly talk to Catherine? She's struggling with forgiving us. Maybe hearing from someone who chose distance over reconciliation would help her decide what's right for her. I agreed to call Catherine, understanding her dilemma. When family betrayed you fundamentally, was reconciliation healing or harmful? Each survivor had to choose their own path. The week ended with a letter from Anna Marie. Not born yet, but already receiving mail through Rachel. Inside was an ultrasound photo and a note in Rachel's handwriting. Baby Anna Marie, your Aunt Anne Marie saved our lives before you were even born. She showed us that strength isn't about giving everything to others. It's about knowing when to stop, when to fight, when to walk away. I hope someday she'll teach you these lessons herself, but if not, know that you're named for the strongest woman in our broken family, the one who broke free. I put the ultrasound on my refrigerator, my first family photo in my cabin. Not the family I'd grown up with, but the future that might be possible. A tiny beginning of something healthier built on truth instead of obligation. Anna Marie would never know the weight of being the family sacrifice. That cycle ended with me. And maybe that was the greatest gift I could give her, a clean slate and an aunt who chose boundaries over burden. The reckoning was complete. Everyone had shown their true selves under pressure. Some, like Derek and my parents, had revealed corruption that ran soul deep. Others, like Rachel and Catherine's family, had faced their failures and chosen growth. And me, I'd revealed strength I'd built through suffering, boundaries I'd drawn from exhaustion, hope I'd salvaged from betrayal. The family I'd tried to save was gone. The family worth saving was still being born. 3 weeks later, Derek's federal trial concluded with guilty verdicts on all counts. His self-representation had been a disaster, revealing more crimes with every narcissistic rant. Margaret Sullivan received 47 years, effectively a life sentence. The network they'd built over decades crumbled in months. I attended the final day of Margaret's sentencing. She winked at me as they led her away in shackles, still trying to claim some twisted victory. But her legacy was in ruins. 6 trained protégés arrested hundreds of victims finding justice, and a criminal empire reduced to evidence boxes. The restitution checks began arriving. Despite refusing my portion, the Federal Victims Fund issued compensation for identity theft and emotional distress. I endorsed each check directly to the Anne Marie Thompson Foundation, building resources for those still trapped. Tuesday brought an unexpected visitor to my office. Rachel, now 7 months pregnant, struggling with the elevator, but determined to see me in person. "I'm sorry to ambush you at work," she began, "but I needed to tell you something face to face." "Okay." "I've been going through Derek's things. The FBI returned items they didn't need as evidence. I found this." She handed me a folder. Inside were contracts Derek had prepared, prenuptial agreements, powers of attorney, life insurance policies, all designed to strip Rachel of everything after marriage. "He was going to destroy me too," she said quietly. "After getting what he wanted from you and Mom and Dad, I was next. The baby was just another tool to him." "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it. "Don't be. You saved me from spending years figuring out what you saw immediately." He kept notes about my psychological vulnerabilities, called me easier to manipulate than anticipated, but useful for family access. "That's horrible." "It's freeing. I wasn't special to him. I wasn't chosen. I was just convenient. It removes any lingering doubt about the divorce." "Annulment," I corrected. "You were never really married. The person you married didn't exist." "Right." She shifted uncomfortably. "There's something else. Mom and Dad have been sending letters to my apartment, asking for money, trying to guilt me about the baby. I've been marking them return to sender, but it's hard. They're our parents. Even after everything, part of me wants to help them. That's the training, I said gently. We were programmed from birth to put their needs first. The guilt you feel isn't love, it's conditioning. How do you resist it? I remember that they had choices. Every day for decades, they chose themselves over us. When someone showed them a mirror in Derek, they smashed it rather than face their reflection. Helping them now wouldn't be compassion. It would be enabling. She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. I'm scared I'll do the same thing to Anna Marie, that I'll become them without meaning to. The fact that you're scared means you won't. They were never scared of hurting us, never questioned their right to take. You're already a better mother than they were parents. Will you come to the baby shower? She asked suddenly. Not for me, for her, so she knows from the beginning that she has family who chose boundaries and thrived. I looked at my sister, swollen with new life and hard-earned wisdom. Send me the details. Wednesday's mail brought a summons. My parents were suing me for emotional distress and financial damages. Apparently, their court-appointed lawyer had found an ambulance chaser willing to take the case on contingency. Marcus laughed when I called him. They're suing the victim of their fraud for not continuing to be victimized. This is either very bold or very stupid. Both, I said. It's both. I'll handle it. Counter-sue for the maximum. Defamation, harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Make it so expensive they'll bankrupt themselves fighting it. They're already bankrupt. Then they'll learn what it really means to have nothing left to take. Thursday, the documentary filmmaker called with an update. The first cut was ready for review. 3 hours of interviews, woven with evidence, photos, court footage, and expert commentary on family fraud dynamics. I watched it alone in my cabin, seeing my story from the outside for the first time. The girl paying her parents' mortgage while living in poverty. The woman renovating a house she'd never inhabit. The moment of betrayal at the wedding. The fight back that exposed a criminal empire. It's powerful, I told the filmmaker, but add something at the end. Resources for victims, hotlines, websites, support groups. Make it practical, not just emotional. Already planned. We're partnering with the National Center for Victims of Crime to create a companion website. Your foundation will be featured prominently. Friday afternoon, Agent Kim called with final case updates. We've contacted all 87 women from Derek's journals. 63 have joined a class action civil suit. 12 are pressing individual charges. The rest just wanted to be warned. Any still in danger? 3 were in active relationships with men who fit similar patterns. They've ended those relationships and are getting support. You saved more people than you know, Anne Marie. We saved them, I corrected. Every woman who spoke up made it safer for the next one. Speaking of which, Catherine Walsh asked me to thank you again. She's engaged to someone real this time. A local rancher who's been her friend for years. She says she never would have seen his worth if she'd stayed blinded by Derek's flash. Saturday arrived with perfect weather for Rachel's baby shower. I dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that said, supportive but bounded. The drive to Lisa's apartment took longer than necessary, as I stopped twice to consider turning back. But I walked in to find a small gathering of women, no one I recognized from our family. Rachel had built her own support system. Lisa's medical colleagues, mothers from prenatal classes, her therapy group friends. Women who knew her story and supported her anyway. Everyone, this is my sister Anne Marie, Rachel announced when I entered. She's the reason we're all here safely today. They applauded, which felt strange. I wasn't used to being celebrated for protecting myself. The shower was simple but warm, practical gifts for a single mother, advice without judgment, stories of resilience and recovery. When Rachel opened my gift, a trust fund for Anna Marie's education, she cried. It's too much, she protested. It's what I would have spent on the house if I'd kept paying, I explained. That money should go to the future, not the past. As the party wound down, one of Rachel's therapy group friends approached me. "I recognize you from the news. My ex-husband did something similar. Convinced my family I was unstable, got them to sign over my inheritance. I never fought back like you did." Fighting back looked different for everyone, I said. Surviving was fighting. Rebuilding was fighting. Speaking now is fighting. "I'm testifying next week," she said. "In my own case. Your story gave me courage." This kept happening. Women approaching me in grocery stores, at work, through social media. All with stories of family who'd chosen exploitation over protection. All finding strength in knowing they weren't alone. Sunday's New York Times featured an article about the rise in family fraud cases. Derek and Margaret's empire was the centerpiece, but the pattern extended nationwide. Adult children exploiting elderly parents, parents stealing from successful children, siblings manipulating inheritance. The family structure that was supposed to protect had become a hunting ground for predators. "The Thompson case changed everything," one expert was quoted. "It showed that family fraud was not just possible but prevalent, and that victims could fight back without apology." I clipped the article from my files, evidence that our pain had created change. Monday morning brought resolution to my parents' frivolous lawsuit. Their contingency lawyer had researched the case and withdrawn. No attorney wanted to represent convicted fraud participants suing their victim. "They'll probably try to represent themselves," Marcus warned, "but the judge will dismiss it immediately. This is desperation, not litigation." "Let them exhaust themselves fighting shadows," I said. "I'm done wrestling with their delusions." Tuesday, I met with the foundation's first board members. Lawyers, therapists, financial advisors, and 3 fraud survivors, including Jennifer Martinez. We structured programs for immediate intervention and long-term prevention. "Education starts young," Jennifer suggested, teaching children about healthy versus toxic family dynamics, normalizing boundaries before they're adults trapped in exploitation. "And support for adults currently trapped," another member added. "Safe extraction plans, financial counseling, legal resources. What we all needed but couldn't find." We worked through lunch, energized by purpose. The foundation would launch with $1 million endowment from the house sale and restitution funds, enough to make real difference immediately. Wednesday's mail contained a letter I'd been dreading, my parents' one last manipulation attempt, but when I opened it, Rachel's handwriting greeted me. "I intercepted this from Mom and Dad," she wrote. "Didn't read it, don't want to know, but thought you should decide what to do with their words. Burn them, read them, ignore them. Your choice. R." I held the sealed envelope, my parents' final attempt to penetrate my boundaries, filtered through their reformed daughter. Rachel had chosen to protect me instead of enabling them. Growth measured in small gestures. I burned the letter unread. Their words had lost power when their actions revealed truth. Thursday was Anna Marie's due date, though first babies rarely arrived on schedule. Rachel texted updates from her appointments, everything progressing normally, baby positioned well, doctor optimistic. I worked late, channeling nervous energy into foundation planning. We'd secured office space, hired an executive director, scheduled our first support groups. The machinery of healing grinding slowly forward. My phone rang at midnight. "Lisa." "She's in labor. Wants you here if you're willing." I drove through empty streets, arriving at the hospital as Rachel entered transition. She gripped my hand through contractions, no words needed. We'd found our way back to sisterhood through pain, as seemed fitting. Anna Marie entered the world at sunrise, screaming and perfect. 7 pounds, 3 ounces of possibility. Rachel sobbed as they placed her daughter on her chest. "She looks like you," Rachel said to me. "Around the eyes." I saw it too. The next generation carrying forward what was worth preserving, leaving behind what wasn't. "Do you want to hold her?" Rachel asked. I accepted my niece carefully, this tiny person named for me, but not burdened by me. "Hello, Anna Marie. Welcome to the world. It's complicated, but worth fighting for." She opened her eyes, seeming to study me with newborn intensity. I whispered promises only she could hear: protection without enabling, love without obligation, support without sacrifice. "Thank you," Rachel said when I handed her back, "for being here, for everything, for showing me how to be strong enough for her." "You were always strong," I said. "You just needed permission to use it for yourself." Friday, I returned to work exhausted but oddly peaceful. Catherine had sent flowers to Rachel, the card signed by my entire team. Small gestures of community replacing toxic family. That afternoon, the prosecutor's office called. Derek was being transferred to federal prison to begin his sentence. He'd requested to make a final statement to victims. I declined. His words meant nothing now. But Margaret's statement arrived by official mail. One paragraph, handwritten in perfect cursive. "Ms. Thompson, you asked why I gave you those names. Simple, professional courtesy between predators. Yes, predators, I hunted for money. You hunt for justice. Both require studying prey, finding weakness, striking precisely. The only difference is your prey deserved it. Respectfully, M.S." I should have been offended. Instead, I felt oddly seen. She was right in her twisted way. I'd learned to hunt those who hunted others, to use their own tactics against them, the student surpassing both masters. Saturday, 1 year after the wedding that changed everything, I stood in my cabin watching sunrise over the mountains. Coffee in hand, phone silent, finally able to rest. The house on Maple Street sheltered its new family. My parents survived in subsidized housing. Their dreams of exploitation ended. Rachel raised Anna Marie with hard-won wisdom. Derek counted days in federal prison. Margaret faced her own mortality behind bars. And I lived. Not just survived, but actually lived. Work that challenged me. Purpose that drove me. Relationships chosen instead of inherited. The foundation helping women escape what I'd endured. The 9-year-old who'd wanted to be someone who rests had grown into a woman who'd earned that rest through battle, who discovered that sometimes the greatest victory wasn't in what you saved, but in what you let burn. My phone buzzed. A text from one of the foundation's first clients: "Got out safely, starting over. Thank you for showing it was possible." I smiled, knowing there would be more messages, more women finding strength in shared truth, more families exposed for choosing exploitation over love, more predators discovering their tactics had been decoded and countered. The sun climbed higher, warming my face. Somewhere Anna Marie was waking for her morning feeding, beginning her life, unburdened by generational dysfunction. Somewhere women were recognizing their own stories in mine and choosing fight over flight. And here in my cabin, bought with money saved by sacrificing everything, I finally understood the difference between being alone and being free. The resolution wasn't in reconciliation or revenge. It wasn't in the justice system or the exposed criminals. It was in this moment standing sovereign in my own life, owing nothing to anyone who'd tried to make me less. The family I'd lost had never been mine to save. The family I'd found, chosen sisters, protective colleagues, tiny nieces born into truth, was worth everything I'd paid to discover them. I raised my coffee to the mountains, to the sunrise, to the woman I'd become through fire. The sacrifice was over. The life had just begun. 6 months after Anna Marie's birth, life had settled into rhythms I'd never imagined possible. The foundation occupied a small office building in Pasadena, bustling with counselors, lawyers, and volunteers. We'd helped 43 women escape financial family abuse in our first quarter alone. I arrived early Tuesday morning to find a familiar car in the parking lot. Catherine Walsh from Colorado, now Catherine Bradley, stood by the entrance with a tall man in worn jeans and a genuine smile. "Anne Marie," she hugged me warmly. "This is Tom, my husband. We wanted to thank you in person." Tom shook my hand with calloused fingers that spoke of real work. Catherine told me everything. How you warned her, helped her see through the deception. We owe you our happiness." "You owe me nothing," I said. "You saved yourselves." "We brought a donation," Catherine said, handing me an envelope. "It's not much, but we wanted the foundation to help others like you helped me." Inside was a check for $5,000 and a note for the women still finding their voices from one who found hers. That afternoon brought our monthly support group. 12 women in various stages of extraction and recovery gathered in our conference room. I facilitated alongside Dr. Patricia Morse, who joined as our clinical director. "I finally filed the police report," Maria shared. "My brother has been stealing from our mother's Social Security for years. The family is furious with me for betraying him." "You're protecting your mother," another woman said. "That's not betrayal, that's love." "He's her favorite," Maria continued. "She'd rather go hungry than see him face consequences. She says I'm jealous, trying to destroy the family." The group nodded knowingly. How many of us had heard similar accusations, been painted as the villain for refusing to enable? Family systems require roles," Dr. Morse explained. "When someone stops playing their assigned part, the system attacks to restore balance. Your brother was the taker, you were the giver. Your mother was the enabler. By refusing to give, you've disrupted everyone's comfortable dysfunction." After group, I checked on our newest initiative, emergency housing. 3 furnished apartments for women fleeing financial family abuse. The first resident, Janet, had arrived yesterday with 2 suitcases and a lifetime of her sister's debts she'd been pressured to pay. "I still can't believe I'm here," she said over tea in her temporary kitchen. 48 hours ago, I was writing another check to bail her out. Your hotline volunteer asked one question that changed everything. "When was the last time she helped you?" What was the answer? "Never. Not once in 37 years. I paid for her college, her weddings, her divorces, her kids' expenses. She never even sent a birthday card." "And your parents?" "Died thinking I was selfish for wanting her to contribute to their care. She was too busy finding herself to help. But somehow, I was the bad daughter for asking her to visit once a month." Stories like Janet's filled our files. The responsible children sacrificed on the altar of family harmony. The successful siblings drained by those who confused love with financial support. The aging parents manipulated by golden children who vanished when the money ran out. Wednesday brought a breakthrough in Rachel's journey. She'd been promoted to office manager at Lisa's practice, earning enough to move to a better apartment near good schools. Anna Marie thrived in daycare, a happy baby, untouched by family poison. "I'm thinking about going back to school," Rachel told me over lunch. "Accounting, maybe, something with stability and growth potential." "That's wonderful. I watch you with the foundation finances, and it makes sense to me. Numbers don't lie or manipulate. They just are what they are." "Unlike people." "Exactly. Plus, I want Anna Marie to see me building something real, not just surviving, but achieving, like you did." "I had to lose everything first," I reminded her. "So did I. Derek, Mom, and Dad, my illusions about family, meaning unconditional support, all gone. But what's left is real." That evening, I reviewed applications for our scholarship program. $20,000 allocated for women whose education had been derailed by family financial abuse. The essays broke my heart and filled it simultaneously. I dropped out of nursing school to pay my father's gambling debts. My mother took loans in my name when I was 18. My brother convinced me to invest my college fund in his business. Each story a variation on the theme. Family as predator love, as weapon guilt as chain, but also resilience, awakening, determination to break free. I approved 6 scholarships that night, 6 women who'd returned to interrupted dreams, 6 futures rescued from family exploitation. Thursday's mail brought an unexpected letter, hand-addressed, no return label, inside my mother's shaky handwriting. "Anne Marie, I know you don't want to hear from us. The shelter says we have to respect that, but I'm dying. Liver failure from the diabetes. Weeks, maybe. Your father had another stroke. He can't speak. I wanted you to know we finally understand what we did, who we were. It's too late for apologies to matter, but you deserved better. You always did. Don't come. Don't respond. Just know that in the end, we knew. Linda. I sat with the letter for an hour waiting to feel something. Sadness, anger, vindication, anything. But there was only quiet acknowledgement. They knew. Finally, too late, they knew. I filed the letter with other case documents. Evidence that sometimes recognition came only at the end when consequences couldn't be escaped. When the child trained to save them had learned to save herself instead. Friday afternoon brought our quarterly board meeting. The foundation had grown beyond my wildest hopes. 3 full-time staff, 20 volunteers partnerships with law firms and therapy practices. We'd inspired similar organizations in 6 other states. The documentary impact has been significant. Our executive director reported. Donations up 300%. Hotline calls averaging 50 per day. We need to expand. We have an offer from a donor, Jennifer Martinez added. Anonymous but verified legitimate. $10 million to establish satellite offices in 5 major cities. Who? I asked. They insisted on anonymity, but they referenced your case specifically, said you saved their daughter from a similar situation. I thought of all the women who'd reached out, mothers who recognized their children's exploitation, daughters who saw their futures in my past, sisters who found courage in shared truth. Accept it, I voted, but with conditions. Local leadership, culturally competent staff partnerships with existing organizations. We expand thoughtfully, not just quickly. The vote was unanimous. The Anne Marie Thompson Foundation would become National Helping Women recognize that family could be the deepest betrayal and survival, the greatest victory. Saturday morning, I woke to texts from Rachel, photos of Anna Marie taking her first unsteady steps, reaching for her mother with absolute trust. The next generation, learning to walk without the weight we'd carried. I drove to the cemetery where my biological parents were buried. Not the people who'd raised and betrayed me, but the ones who died when I was 2. Car accident, no relatives to take me in adoption by Linda and Richard Thompson, who'd later have Rachel and need a built-in caregiver for her. The graves were simple, maintained by the state. I'd found them during the identity theft investigation when deep background checks revealed my adoption. Another secret my parents kept another way, I'd never truly been family. I survived them. I told the strangers who'd given me life. I hope that would make you proud. I left flowers and a note about the foundation, about turning pain into purpose, about their daughter who'd learned that family was action, not blood. Sunday support group included a new face, Diane, 63, silver-haired and elegant despite obvious exhaustion. I'm not sure I belong here, she began hesitantly. It's not my parents or siblings. It's my children. 3 successful adults who've drained my retirement, convinced me to mortgage my paid-off house, guilted me into co-signing loans they never paid. Oh, financial abuse has no age restrictions, Dr. Morse assured her. Parents can be victims, too. They were good kids, Diane continued, until they weren't. Until they decided I owed them continued support forever. My daughter actually said I was selfish for wanting to retire, that good mothers never stop giving. The group embraced her story, recognizing the reversed pattern. Children trained to take becoming adults who consumed, parents who gave from love, watching it transform into obligation. After group, Diane approached me privately. Your story gave me permission to say no, to stop enabling. My kids are furious, but I'm free. At 63, I'm finally free. Monday morning brought news that would reshape everything. Margaret Sullivan had died in prison. Heart attack in her cell found during morning count. Her empire officially ended. Agent Kim called with details. She left something for you, a safety deposit box in your name. We verified it's not a trap, just documents. The box contained journals spanning 40 years. Margaret's original notes on her first husband, the one who taught her that love meant exploitation. Her evolution from victim to predator. Her training methods for her children. And a final entry dated the day before her death. To Anne Marie Thompson, you'll outlive us all. Derek will die in prison dreaming of what he almost had. I'll die knowing my legacy is destroyed, but you'll live to see the world you're building, where women know their worth, where family abuse is recognized and stopped, where the weak become strong by refusing to break. I created monsters. You're creating warriors. Your legacy wins. I donated the journals to the FBI Training Academy. Let future investigators study the mind that created Derek and others. Learn the patterns, the tactics, the slow seduction of exploitation disguised as love. Tuesday's mail brought scholarship thank you notes. 6 women starting or returning to school. 6 futures reclaimed from family wreckage. Because of you, I start nursing school in January. My accounting classes begin next week. I've been accepted to law school. Each note was proof that breaking free was just the beginning, that lives paused by exploitation could resume and flourish. Wednesday, I met with architectural firms about our new headquarters. The anonymous donation would transform everything. 5 cities waiting for hope. Hundreds of women who'd recognize themselves in our stories and find strength to write their own. We want the building to feel safe, but not institutional, I explained. Welcoming but secure, a place where women can imagine different futures. The winning design included private consultation rooms, a children's play area, secure parking, and a memorial wall for those who didn't survive family exploitation. We'd break ground in spring. Thursday brought Anna Marie's first birthday party. A small gathering at Rachel's apartment carefully curated to include only those who'd proven themselves. Lisa, her medical colleagues who'd embraced Rachel, the therapy group members who'd become chosen family. I watched my niece smash chocolate cake with both fists, laughing at the mess, unburdened by performance, free to be imperfect, allowed to take up space. She's nothing like we were, Rachel observed. I show her photos of us as babies. We looked worried even then. She just looks happy. Because she is, I said, because you're breaking the cycle. She'll never wonder if she's loved, never have to earn basic affection, never sacrifice herself for family approval. Thanks to you. Thanks to both of us. I showed you it was possible. You're showing her it's normal. Friday's session with Dr. Morse focused on the letter from my mother. How do you feel about their recognition coming at the end? She asked. Relieved it came at all. Sad it came too late. Mostly just finished. That chapter is closed. They know, I know they know, and nothing changes except maybe they died with clarity instead of delusion. And your father, unable to speak. Poetic justice. He had a lifetime to say he loved me, to defend me, to choose me. He used his voice to praise strangers and dismiss his daughter. Now it's gone taking with it any words he might have finally meant. You sound at peace with it. I am. They're facing natural consequences of unnatural choices. I didn't cause their suffering. I just stopped preventing it. Saturday, the documentary premiered at film festivals. Standing Ovation's acquisition offers media requests I mostly declined. The story was told, the work continued. Fame would only distract from purpose. But I attended one screening sitting in the back as 200 people watched my life condensed to 90 minutes. Gasps at the wedding scene. Tears during my testimony. Applause when Derek was sentenced. Silence during the statistics about family financial abuse. The filmmaker had added updates, Rachel thriving as a single mother, the foundation's growth, legislative proposals inspired by our case, hope threading through trauma. During the Q&A, a young woman stood. My parents have taken over 60,000 from me in 5 years. Always emergencies, always promises to pay back. Watching this, I realize they'll never stop. What do I do? You set boundaries, I answered. You get legal help. You find support. You accept that their financial problems aren't your responsibility. You save yourself first. Then, if you're able, you help others do the same. She nodded, tears flowing, another warrior recognizing her battle. Sunday morning, I stood in my cabin, coffee in hand, watching sunrise paint the mountains gold. A year and a half since the wedding that destroyed my family and saved my life. The cabin had been updated with foundation awards lining the walls, photos of women we'd helped starting new lives, thank you notes from daughters, mothers, sisters who'd found strength in shared truth, evidence that pain could become purpose. My phone buzzed. Rachel sending videos of Anna Marie attempting new words. Mama came easily. Up was clear, but she'd started saying something that sounded like Annie when she saw my photo. She recognizes you, Rachel texted. Even with limited contact, she knows you're important. Important, but not obligated. Loved, but not leveraged. Family by choice, not chance. I opened my laptop to review the week ahead. Foundation meetings, support groups, interviews for new staff. The work of rebuilding not just individual lives, but entire systems of understanding. The 9-year-old who'd wanted to be someone who rests had become someone who helped others find rest, who taught that exhaustion wasn't love, that sacrifice wasn't sacred, that family could be the deepest wound and walking away the greatest healing. Somewhere Linda Thompson was dying with the knowledge she'd traded her daughter for a con man. Richard Thompson sat silent, his voice stolen by strokes and choices. Derek counted days in federal prison, Margaret's ashes scattered in an unmarked grave. And I lived. Fully, freely, finally, building futures from the ashes of a past that tried to consume me, teaching women that survival was just the beginning, that thriving was their right, that family was something you chose every day through actions, not accidents of birth. The sun climbed higher, warming my face through windows I'd purchased with my own money in a home no one could take. The foundation would grow. More women would find freedom. Anna Marie would grow up knowing boundaries were strength, not selfishness. The rebuilding was complete, not of what was lost, that family never deserved salvation, but of what could be, what hundreds of women were discovering, what future generations would inherit. A life where love wasn't measured in sacrifice, where family wasn't a trap but a choice, where women knew their worth and refused to negotiate, where rest was a right, not a dream deferred. I raised my coffee to the sunrise, to the women finding courage, to the children growing up unburdened. The girl who'd paid for love with everything she had was gone. The woman who'd learned love couldn't be bought stood in her place. And she was finally fully free. 2 years after the wedding that changed everything, I stood before a crowd of 300 at the Foundation's first national conference. Women from 40 states had gathered to share stories, strategies, and strength. The anonymous donor had revealed herself a tech executive whose daughter had nearly married a man trained by Margaret Sullivan's network. "My daughter showed me your documentary," she said during her keynote. "I saw my own family's dynamics reflected, the way we'd praise the charming stranger while dismissing her concerns. We were 3 weeks from handing over her trust fund when your story saved us." The conference sessions ranged from legal strategies to therapeutic interventions, workshops on recognizing manipulation, setting boundaries, rebuilding credit, a panel of survivors sharing how they'd transformed trauma into purpose. Rachel attended with 18-month-old Anna Marie, who toddled through the conference venue spreading joy. My sister had completed her first semester of accounting school with a 4.0 GPA while working full-time and raising her daughter. I never thought I'd be good at anything real, she told the young mother's support group. Derek convinced me I was only valuable as a decoration. My parents reinforced that beauty and charm were my only assets. Turns out, I'm actually smart when someone believes in me. Saturday evening brought the survivors' dinner. 200 women who'd escaped family financial abuse gathered in a ballroom that felt sacred with shared understanding. No judgment, no shame, just recognition that we'd survived what many couldn't imagine. Elizabeth Warren, now remarried and running a foundation branch in Phoenix, raised her glass to the woman who showed us that fighting back wasn't selfish, that family could be the enemy, that we deserved better than being ATMs with pulses. The toast echoed through the room, women who'd been isolated in their pain-finding community in recovery. After dinner, I slipped away to the balcony, needing air and quiet. The city lights stretched below each one, possibly representing someone trapped as we'd been, or someone free building new life from old ashes, hiding from your own success. Dr. Morse joined me now, not just our clinical director, but a friend who'd walked through the worst with me. Processing, I corrected. 2 years ago, I couldn't have imagined this. Hundreds of women finding freedom because I refused to stay quiet about my family's betrayal. You gave permission, she said simply, to be angry, to demand justice, to reject the idea that family bonds excuse exploitation. That's powerful. My parents would have hated this, I mused. All these women refusing to sacrifice themselves for family comfort. They'd say we're selfish, destroying sacred institutions. They died believing that, didn't they? The question hung between us. Linda had passed 6 months ago alone in hospice except for paid staff. Richard followed 3 weeks later, never having spoken again. Rachel and I paid for simple cremations, no services. Their ashes scattered in the municipal garden with others who died unmourned. They died knowing the truth, I said finally. That's more than many get. Whether they accepted it or just recognized it, I'll never know. But they knew. Sunday morning brought workshop presentations. I led one on documentation strategies, teaching women to build legal cases while still trapped. Paper trails that could become escape routes. Evidence that transformed from private shame to public justice. Every receipt, every text, every email, I instructed. Date it. Save it, back it up. You're not being paranoid, you're being prepared. The difference between my success and Derek's plan was documentation. A hand raised in the back. What if their family isn't keeping records, like planning betrayal? They betrayed you first, I answered gently, by taking what wasn't theirs, by leveraging love for money, by choosing their comfort over your security. Documentation isn't betrayal, it's self-defense. After lunch, Catherine Bradley presented on rebuilding after escape. Her ranch had become a retreat center for women in recovery from family abuse. Tom supported her work, understanding that her near loss had become their shared purpose. I was days from signing everything over, she reminded the audience. My brothers, who'd never helped with ranch work, suddenly cared deeply about my love life. Derek had them convinced I needed a man to run things properly. If Anne-Marie hadn't warned me, I'd have lost 4 generations of family land to a stranger with good teeth. The afternoon brought policy panels, legislators considering bills inspired by our work, proposals to make family financial abuse a specific crime, not just fraud between strangers, recognition that trust could be weaponized, that love could be leveraged, that family could be the most dangerous predator. Jennifer Martinez had become our policy director, using her tech background to build databases tracking family fraud patterns. We're mapping the networks, she explained, how Margaret Sullivan's children connected where they operated, who they targeted. It's like tracking a virus that spreads through emotional vulnerability. Monday after the conference, I returned to my regular routine. Morning therapy groups, afternoon case reviews, evening planning sessions for our expanding programs. the work had become less about my own healing and more about systemic change. Anna Marie spent Tuesdays at the foundation while Rachel attended classes. She played in our childcare room with other children whose mothers were rebuilding. A generation growing up seeing women support each other instead of competing for scraps of approval. Annie. She ran to me that afternoon, arms raised for a hug. I lifted her, this tiny person who carried my name but not my burdens. She loves you, Rachel observed, differently than she loves me, but deeply, like she knows your safety even from a distance. That's all I wanted to be, I admitted. Safe. Not primary, not daily, but someone she could trust to protect her if needed. You are. The paperwork's all finalized. If anything happens to me, she goes to you, then Lisa, never to mom and dad's relatives, never to anyone who'd use her instead of loving her. Wednesday brought news through the legal network. Derek had been stabbed in prison, survived but badly injured. Apparently, he'd tried running romance scams on other inmates' families. Even behind bars, he couldn't stop predating. He'll be in protective custody indefinitely, Agent Kim informed me. Turns out criminals don't appreciate someone targeting their mothers and sisters. Who would have thought? I felt nothing about his injury. No satisfaction, no sympathy. He'd become irrelevant to my life except as a cautionary tale and catalyst for change. Let him rot in safety or danger. Either way, he couldn't hurt anyone else. Thursday's mail included a letter forwarded through the foundation, elegant handwriting on expensive stationery. Ms. Thompson, my name is Margaret Ellison, no relation to Margaret Sullivan despite the shared name. I'm 78 years old and just discovering my son has been stealing from me for 12 years. Your foundation gave me courage to press charges instead of dying quietly broke. He's furious my daughter-in-law won't let me see the grandchildren, and I'm sleeping better than I have in years. Thank you for showing that victims can be any age, that family can be predators, that fighting back isn't betraying love, it's honoring it. Gratefully, Margaret E. I added her letter to our victory file, evidence that change rippled outward, reaching people we'd never meet in person. Friday brought Rachel's semester grades. All A's while single parenting and working. She'd found her talent in numbers that didn't lie, systems that made sense, balance sheets that revealed truth. I'm thinking about forensic accounting after graduation, she told me over celebratory coffee. Helping expose financial crimes, maybe specializing in family fraud cases, turn our trauma into expertise. That's brilliant, I said, meaning it. You understand the emotional manipulation that enables the financial crime. Most investigators miss that part. Plus, I have insider knowledge. I watched Derek work, saw how he tracked targets, built trust, created crisis. I could spot another him from miles away now. Saturday, I visited the cemetery again. Not my biological parents this time, but Linda and Richard Thompson's markers. Simple stones with names and dates, nothing more. Rachel and I had split the cost doing the minimum required by law. I didn't speak to them, didn't leave flowers, just stood witness to the end of people who'd created one daughter to serve another, who'd sold out the servant when a better offer arrived, who died understanding too late that exploitation wasn't love. A text from Anna Marie's babysitter included a photo. My niece, reading a picture book to her stuffed animals, serious and focused, building stories before she had all the words, creating meaning from images and imagination. She'd grow up bilingual in love and boundaries, fluent in self-worth and compassion for others, native speaker of respect and reciprocity. Everything Rachel and I had to learn as foreign languages in our 30s. Sunday morning ritual remained unchanged. Coffee, sunrise, mountains, but now my phone buzzed with updates from 5 cities. Foundation branches opening, women finding hope, systems changing slowly but surely. The anonymous donor had revealed plans for Phase 2 and international expansion. Family financial abuse wasn't uniquely American. Women worldwide faced exploitation disguised as obligation. Our model could translate adapt spread. We're calling it the Phoenix Project, she'd explained, rising from ashes, building new from what tried to destroy us. You lit the first flame. Now we carry torches worldwide. I'd approved with conditions. Local leadership who understood cultural contexts, partnerships with existing organizations, respect for different family structures while maintaining zero tolerance for exploitation. As noon approached, I prepared for our weekend workshop. Financial Boundaries 101 for women just beginning to recognize abuse. The hardest group to reach, still hoping love could reform takers, still believing sacrifice equaled virtue. 20 women arrived nervous and defensive. I recognized myself in their faces. The exhaustion, the guilt, the desperate hope that setting limits wouldn't mean losing family. Let's start with truth, I began. Your family member who keeps taking, they won't stop. Not because you haven't given enough, but because taking is who they are. Your choice isn't between saving them or losing them. It's between losing yourself or saving yourself. Tears, anger, recognition flowed. By session's end, 3 had decided to press charges. 5 would seek legal advice. 8 would start documentation. The rest weren't ready yet, but seeds were planted. After they left, I sat in the empty conference room remembering my own journey, the wedding announcement that shattered illusions, the family that chose a con man over a daughter, the fight that exposed criminals but cost everything I'd thought mattered. Except it hadn't cost everything. It had revealed what was real. The family I'd tried to save was never worth saving. The self I'd nearly lost was worth everything. My phone rang, Rachel excited. Anna Marie just said her first full sentence, Annie helps people. She must have heard me talking about your work. 3 words from a toddler that encompassed everything. Annie helps people. Not Annie sacrifices for family. Not Annie enables takers. Not Annie earns love through giving. Annie helps people. Subject, verb, object. Complete thought. Revolutionary in its simplicity. That's perfect, Ma, I told my sister. That's exactly right. Monday would bring new challenges. More women seeking freedom. More systems to change. More battles against the idea that family bonds justified exploitation. But today was Sunday. Anna Marie was learning sentences. Rachel was building her future. 5 cities prepared to open hope. Hundreds of women had found strength in shared truth. And I sat in my cabin no longer the exhausted child wanting rest, no longer the exploited daughter buying love with sacrifice. Now I was Annie who helps people, who'd learned that helping started with saving yourself. The wedding that destroyed my family had birthed something better, a movement of women refusing exploitation, a network of survivors becoming warriors, a future where love meant respect, not resources. Linda and Richard Thompson were ashes scattered among strangers. Derek Sullivan counted days in protective custody. Margaret Sullivan was gone, her empire dismantled. But Anna Marie was learning to speak truth. Rachel was claiming her worth. Thousands of women were finding freedom. And I was finally fully unapologetically alive. The girl who'd wanted to be someone who rests had become someone who helped others find peace, who taught that rest wasn't earned through exhaustion, but claimed through boundaries. The new beginning wasn't just mine. It belonged to every woman who'd recognize her story in mine, who'd find courage to document strength to escape purpose in survival. We were no longer isolated victims of family greed. We were an army of survivors who'd learned the most revolutionary truth. Family was a choice, not a chain. Love was respect, not robbery. And every woman deserved both. 5 years after the wedding that changed my life, I stood in the Foundation's new headquarters addressing our 10th anniversary gala. The anonymous donor had revealed herself publicly, Maria Castellano, whose daughter Isabella had nearly lost her medical practice to a Derek trained predator. Together, we'd built something neither of us had imagined. When I first saw Anne Marie's story, Maria told the crowd of 500 I wept for hours, not just for her pain, but because I recognized my own family's patterns, the way we dismissed Isabella's concerns about her fiancé, how we pushed her toward someone who'd studied us like prey. Anne Marie's courage saved my daughter, then inspired us to save others. The foundation had grown beyond our dreams. 56 offices across 6 countries. 4,000 women helped to escape financial family abuse. Legislation passed in 32 states, making family financial exploitation a specific crime. The Phoenix Project had partnerships in 12 nations, adapting our model to different cultures while maintaining core principles. Rachel sat at the head table, now our chief financial officer. Her forensic accounting degree had led to specialization in family fraud cases. She'd testified in 17 trials helping convict predators who thought family bonds would protect their crimes. Anna Marie, 5 years old and fiercely independent, colored quietly beside her mother. "Aunt Annie," she ran to me during the reception, brandishing her artwork. "I drew our family." The picture showed 3 figures holding hands: Rachel, Anna Marie, and me. Above us, she'd drawn a building labeled Help Place, where stick figures smiled and hugged. Our work had become her normal women, supporting women her expected reality. "It's beautiful," I told her. "Should we frame it for my office?" Yes, next to the other families." She meant the wall of photos from women we'd helped, hundreds of faces representing thousands of stories. Daughters who'd escaped parental exploitation, mothers who'd stopped enabling adult children, sisters who'd chosen boundaries over bankruptcy, each photo a testament to choosing self over sacrifice. Dr. Patricia Morse, still our clinical director, approached with champagne. "Remember, when you first came to me, convinced that setting boundaries meant you were selfish." I remember thinking family was everything, I admitted, that love meant endless giving, that sacrifice proved worth. "Now you teach the opposite, that love requires respect, that boundaries create safety, that worth exists without sacrifice. It's beautiful to witness." The evening's program included video messages from women worldwide. Jennifer Martinez from our Seattle office, now training FBI agents in family fraud patterns. Elizabeth Warren from Phoenix, whose second marriage thrived because she'd learned to recognize real love. Catherine Bradley from Colorado, whose ranch had become a healing retreat for survivors. "You didn't just save us," Catherine said in her message. "You showed us how to save each other, how to turn pain into purpose without letting it consume us, how to build lives worth living after betrayal." Derek's name was never mentioned. He'd become irrelevant, except as a cautionary tale. Still in prison, still running small scams, still unable to comprehend that women had united against predators like him. His mother's legacy had died with her, but ours grew stronger daily. The keynote speaker was unexpected Anna Marie Chen, the Colorado prosecutor who'd handled Derek's case. She'd left government work to establish a legal clinic specializing in family financial abuse. "The Thompson case changed how we understand fraud," she explained. "It proved that family could be the most dangerous predator, that trust could be weaponized, that love could be leveraged for theft. Most importantly, it showed that victims could fight back without apology." During her speech, I thought about Linda and Richard Thompson, dead 5 years now, having spent their final months understanding the cost of choosing exploitation over love. They died broke alone except for paid caregivers, their golden son-in-law in prison, their daughters building lives without them. Sometimes I wondered if they'd have chosen differently knowing the outcome. Would they have valued my mortgage payments over Derek's promises, seen my sacrifices as love instead of obligation, recognized that the daughter they'd trained to give everything was worth more than the stranger who promised to take her place? But those were questions without answers. They'd made their choice at Rachel's wedding publicly and cruelly. Everything after was consequence. The program concluded with an announcement that made me catch my breath. The foundation was endowing a university chair in family financial abuse studies, the first academic program dedicated to understanding and preventing exploitation within families. Like the Anne Marie Thompson Chair will ensure future generations of social worker, lawyers, and therapists understand these dynamics, Maria announced. That family fraud becomes as recognizable as stranger danger, that no more women suffer in silence, believing sacrifice equals love. I stood to acknowledge the honor, overwhelmed by how far we'd come. The 9-year-old who'd wanted to be someone who rests had become someone whose work would outlive her, whose pain had become purpose that rippled across continents. I need to tell you something. I began speaking without notes. 5 years ago, I lost everything I thought mattered. My family chose a stranger over their daughter. My childhood home became a crime scene. My identity was stolen along with my faith in blood bonds. The room was silent, 500 people holding their breath. But in losing that family, I found all of you, women who understood that love wasn't measured in sacrifice, who knew family could be chosen, not just inherited, who proved that fighting back wasn't selfish but sacred. Applause started slowly building to thunder, women standing, many crying, all understanding. My parents died believing I was selfish for protecting myself. My sister survived because she learned boundaries could coexist with love. My niece grows up knowing her worth isn't negotiable, and thousands of women have discovered what I learned the hard way, that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about respect, reciprocity, and the revolutionary act of choosing yourself first. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. When it finally ended, Anna Marie had climbed onto the stage, taking my hand with complete confidence. "Are you sad about the bad people?" she asked with 5-year-old directness. "No, sweetheart, not anymore." "Good, because we're the good people. We help." From the mouths of babes, we help, not we sacrifice, not we enable, not we give until we're empty. We help ourselves first, then others finding their way. The gala ended with survivors and supporters mingling, sharing stories, building networks. I watched Rachel work the room with professional confidence, Anna Marie charming everyone with her precocious understanding of our mission. "She wants to be a helper when she grows up," Rachel told me during a quiet moment. "Yesterday, she told her teacher that some families hurt people, and that's why we need safe places." The teacher called concerned. I explained our work, and she ended up donating to the foundation. Anna Marie recruiting at 5, I laughed. "She's gonna change the world." She already has, by existing, by proving cycles can be broken, by showing that the next generation doesn't have to inherit our damage. As the evening wound down, I found myself on the balcony again, city lights stretching endlessly. Dr. Morse joined me, our tradition at these events. "What are you thinking?" she asked. About time. How 5 years ago I stood in a hotel bathroom as my life shattered. How I thought I'd lost everything. How wrong I was. You lost illusions. You gained truth. I lost a family that never loved me. I gained thousands who understand love means boundaries. Any regrets? I considered the question. Regret for years wasted trying to earn impossible love, for money spent saving people who'd readily sacrifice me, for believing family meant accepting exploitation. "No," I said finally. "Every sacrifice, every payment, every moment of pain led here. To Anna Marie growing up free, to Rachel finding her strength, to thousands of women discovering their worth. I wouldn't change anything because changing it might change this." "That's healing," Dr. Morse observed, "when you can look at your worst moments and feel grateful they led to your best." The cleanup crew arrived efficiently, transforming our celebration space back to neutral, but the energy lingered. 500 people united in understanding that family could be the deepest wound and walking away the greatest healing. Maria found me as I prepared to leave. Phase 3, she said simply. We go global. Every continent, every culture where family exploitation hides behind tradition. You lit the match. Now we burn down the whole system that enables abuse. Carefully, I cautioned, respectfully, working with local leaders who understand context. Of course, but comprehensively, no more women anywhere believing they must sacrifice everything for family approval. I drove home to my cabin, upgraded over the years, but still my sanctuary. The foundation awards lined the walls. Photos of women we'd helped covered one entire surface. Thank you. Letters filled drawers. Evidence that one person's refusal to stay quiet could echo across the world. But tonight I focused on 3 photos. Rachel at her graduation, beaming with earned pride. Anna Marie on her first day of preschool, confident and unafraid. And one from tonight, the 3 of us on stage, my niece, between her mother and aunt, surrounded by hundreds who'd found freedom through shared truth. This was family, chosen through respect, maintained through boundaries, strengthened through support that flowed both ways. Nothing like the family that had birthed and betrayed me, everything like the family I'd needed all along. My phone buzzed with messages, women from tonight sharing their stories, thanking me for the courage to speak first. I responded to each one, remembering how isolated I'd felt that wedding night, how certain I was that family betrayal was my unique shame, how wrong I'd been. We were legion. Women sacrificed on altars of family harmony, daughters drained by parents who confused love with resources, sisters exploited by siblings who felt entitled to success they hadn't earned, mothers manipulated by children who never learned that support had limits. But we were rising, speaking truth, setting boundaries, teaching the next generation that love meant respect. That family was earned through actions not assumed through accidents of birth. That choosing yourself wasn't selfish but necessary. The documentary about our work had won awards, been translated into dozens of languages, shown in schools and shelters worldwide. My story had become our story. Our story had become a movement. The movement had become unstoppable change. As midnight approached on this anniversary, I stood one final time at my window, looking at mountains that had witnessed my transformation. 5 years ago, I'd fled here, broken and alone. Tonight, I stood whole and connected to thousands. The girl who'd wanted to be someone who rests had found peace through purpose, rest through righteous anger transformed to action. The exhausted child had become a woman who taught others they deserved rest, without earning it through depletion. Derek remained in prison irrelevant, except as reminder of what we'd overcome. His mother was gone, her legacy of manipulation replaced by our legacy of liberation. Linda and Richard Thompson were ashes, their cruelty composted into fuel for change. But Anna Marie was learning to read, sounding out words about families who chose love. Rachel was building a career from skills discovered in recovery. Thousands of women were free because one wedding's cruelty had catalyzed revolution. And I was here, alive whole, surrounded by chosen family who understood that love wasn't sacrifice, that worth wasn't earned through giving. That family was about lifting each other, not standing on someone's shoulders to reach higher. The foundation would continue growing, laws would change, culture would shift. Future generations would learn that family bonds didn't justify exploitation. That blood wasn't thicker than self-respect. That walking away from abuse wasn't betrayal, but bravery. But tonight, in this moment, I simply stood grateful for the pain that had taught me truth, for the betrayal that had freed me from illusions, for the wedding that had destroyed one family and birthed thousands. With thank you, I whispered to the universe, to the 9-year-old who'd endured, to the 32-year-old who'd fought back, to the 37-year-old who'd built something from ashes. Thank you for teaching me that family was choice, not chance. That love was respect, not robbery. That sacrifice was not sacred when it destroyed the giver. That boundaries were bridges to real relationship, not walls preventing love. My phone showed one final message. Anna Marie, who'd insisted on learning to text, sending heart emojis with "Love Aunt Annie" in caps, lock enthusiasm. This was wealth. This was family. This was the life I'd bought with 7 years of mortgage payments, not the house I'd lost, but the freedom I'd found. Not the approval I'd never earned, but the self-respect I'd claimed. The wedding that had seemed like an ending had been a beginning. The sacrifice that had seemed like waste had been investment. The family that had seemed like everything had been nothing compared to what rose from their ashes. I was Anne Marie Thompson, former family sacrifice, current family fraud expert, future hope for women still trapped. But mostly I was Annie, who helps people, starting with herself. And that made all the difference. If you've experienced family financial abuse or betrayal, I want you to know you're not alone. Your pain is valid, your anger is justified, and your desire for freedom is not selfish. It's necessary. What boundaries do you wish you'd set sooner with family members who took advantage of your generosity? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what another woman needs to hear today. If this story resonated with you, please consider commenting with your own experiences or insights, liking this video to help it reach others who need to hear it, subscribing to our channel for more stories of survival and strength, sharing this with someone who might be struggling with family exploitation. Remember, choosing yourself isn't betrayal. It's the beginning of everything. Thank you for listening to my story. May you find the courage to write your own with boundaries as paragraphs and self-respect as punctuation. You deserve a family that chooses you as fiercely as you've chosen them. Accept nothing less, with love and hope for your freedom, Anne Marie.